everyone, once again to the Nerd Rage Podcast. I'm Ryan Anderson, and joining me to my left, as always, is the Skype man, Hype Man,
Brad Learman.
What's up, man?
Not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot?
Got some coffee in me, and I'm fully awake.
Oh, yeah, I gotta imagine that it's gotta be a different kind of thing for you, because it's an early morning. Actually, this is the first time we've done one this early. I just happen to have a freer schedule this week, so I thought we'd do a nice early morning show. So, yeah, it's good to have you on, man.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, actually, for anyone who hasn't been following with us, first of all, I want to say thank you to our fans who reached out. There was an issue with our show where people couldn't find it for like a couple days, so we put it back. Everything's good. Want to say thank you to everyone who reached out for that. And then just some of the other things too, like our buddy Joey McCormick out there is doing some more cartoons and stuff in celebration of Spider-Man Day when they released Spider-Man PS4. So wanted to give a shout out to him. Go check out his work. I think the only other thing I wanted to bring up real quick is that now that we are back, I can announce that I was a part of the TV show Devs. I thought that was a cool thing to bring up here. I talked about it very briefly on my personal Twitter, but the show is going to be really cool, and I can't wait for you guys to see it on FX or FXX. I always forget how many X's there are going to be in the thing, but the show looks really cool. It's the new Alex Garland project that it's like a limited run series. I hope that everyone loves it when it comes out, and you might actually get to see me in it. So, yeah, thought I'd throw that in there. And I do want to apologize because a combination of being sick, me being on that TV show, and just the craziness that is life, it took a lot out. And, sorry that we couldn't get everything up, but we have like 3 or 4 episodes that we're going to be dropping in this week. So we're back on track and ready to go. So, Brad, I don't know about you, but before we get into DC, Marvel, and miscellaneous, how about a little bit of rumor mill?
Oh, always love rumor mill.
Yeah, all right. So it's a 2-parter for this week's rumor mill. We have the first part that Pedro Pascal, who many of us know is in an undisclosed role in Wonder Woman 84. We actually now know who he's going to be playing. And before it had been heard that it's Maxwell Lord, which is still technically a possibility, but the rumor going around is right now that he may be Hades in disguise. And I think that's really cool, because if they do go the Hades route, then you have kind of a similar vein to what they did with the first Wonder Woman movie, where Ares was in disguise, and it's a lot of like manipulation and that sort of thing. And I don't think you really need to mess with things too much from the format of the first Wonder Woman. The idea would be that Hades would actually make a deal, and that deal would bring Steve Trevor back to the present, to the 1984. Presently in Wonder Woman's life in that movie. So that would be a really cool way to bring Steve Trevor back, even though like I have my personal feelings that I don't think he needs to come back, but there is that emotional tether, so that's a great struggle for Wonder Woman to have to deal with in that movie. Do you like this idea or not so much?
I do like the idea of Hades, kind of, I guess, using Trevor against Wonder Woman. Because it's actually really funny. There's a story of some dude going down to hell in Greek mythology, and
okay.
Hades is kind of keeping her soul down there, and this guy goes down there. He tries to get her out, but Hades gives her this. I don't know, it's either fruit, or he told her that if you ever on your way out, if you look back, like you're forever trapped here. And they were almost out, and she turned around to look back, and she was like gone.
Oh, dude, yeah, I think I remember that. I almost feel like it was alluded to in like one of the God of War games, actually.
Possibly.
Yeah, actually, when you said
they might do something like that in the movie.
Yeah, when you said that he was gonna go down, and then you kind of like paused there for a second, I thought you were actually gonna go into the Devil Went Down to Georgia and do the whole Devil Went Down to Georgia song there.
Not that musically inclined. I did this morning.
Devil went down to Georgia. He's looking for a soul to steal. But anyways, so that is our current rumor on that one. And the other part that we have through our source is that Sharlto Copley, who many of you guys will probably remember from like District 9 or maybe the A-Team movie or that shortly lived Powers show that was on PlayStation Network, he's actually being looked at to be cast as Black Mask. And this will be obviously for the Birds of Prey movie. So what do you think of this? Do you think that he's a good fit as like a crime boss, manipulator of the underworld? What do you think of all that?
I guess if you like South African accents, maybe.
I mean, I'm sure he can put on an American accent.
He does. He does. But if I'm being honest, I think the Birds of Prey movie is a bad idea.
We'll get to that because it's definitely part of our news for this week. But
I mean, he could play a decent crime boss, but if they just try to make him like insane, like that's gonna be a terrible idea.
Yeah, I think my problem is in the fact that it is Sharlto Copley, like, and it's nothing against him. Like, I think he's good for like the kind of hard nosed, but you get a chuckle out of the guy kind of type. Like the character he plays in A-Team is great, but it's like that's how I see him in almost every movie now. Like, I mean, even how he was in District 9 was fine. He was okay in the other one from the same director. I want to say it was Elysium that he was in as well. Yes. I think he was in that as well. And he does a good job, but it's just, I don't know. I don't see him as, a real puppet master per se. And we'll see how it turns out if it turns out true. But our source reveals that he's actually already been cast for the role, even though right now it's speculation between him and Ewan McGregor. So it's funny because I don't see either of them. I see them more in like jokey roles for those two rather than like a hard-nosed crime boss. So we'll have to wait and see how this turns out. But I could list off the top of my head like 5 to 10 people that I think would be way better suited for Black Mask. So that is what it is. What do you guys think? Let us know. Hit us up with Twitter comments. I had my phone blow up this morning over something that I don't want to get into because it's a long thing. But I know you guys will let us know what you thought. But let us know. So as we like to do, there's a little thing we do: DC, Marvel, and miscellaneous. What would you like, Brad?
Let's do DC.
DC it is, and there is a whole lot of DC here, so probably a good idea that you pick this. And for this week's Big Talk, I should have mentioned at the top, we are going to be talking about the fall TV lineup and what our most expectation, or what we're most looking forward to this fall season. So we'll get to that later on, and let's get right to DC. Okay, so first off, at the top, we always like to do DC TV. So at our number 3 for DC TV, we've got Swamp Thing. And Swamp Thing has all these new castings. We've got Crystal Reed, we've got Maria Sten, and Sheriff Lucilla Cable. So Crystal Reed is going to be playing Abby Arcane. We've got Maria Sten playing Liz Tremaine. And then Sheriff Lucilla Cable is going to be played by Jennifer Beals of Flashdance fame. So very interesting castings here. I mean, they're really rounding out this show. I guess, simply put to you, Brad, what are you looking to see most from Swamp Thing when it comes out?
Definitely not copying the tone of Titans. I think it needs to set itself apart from all the other shows. Is Doom Patrol coming out before it?
Doom Patrol is reportedly going to come out before Swamp Thing, but they're going to be pretty neck and neck here. Doom Patrol is currently in production already, so yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I just think Swamp Thing has to have its own tone. It can't mesh with Titans. It's going to have some sort of stark contrast between them.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think they will, because I mean, it's Swamp Thing versus Titans, and it's two completely different settings and types of characters. I mean, there's definitely going to be more mysticism, especially when you bring in a character like Abby Arcane. I mean, they're going to try and ground it and have like real characters and stuff. It's not going to be completely Justice League dark, But yeah, I think it'll be great. And I mean, just the idea that DC is able to grab up some of these really great actors, even, whether they're 80s, 90s, or today. I feel like I'm talking about music. But, Jennifer Beals, the fact that we know that there's other characters that exist now in the DC universe, like the fact that we know Robot Man is going to be now played by Brendan Fraser, which we talked about in the last episode. I mean, I just really am surprised at some of the gets that they're getting for this universe, especially on a TV scale. But as we move along here, there is more with the DC universe. There is Titans, and Titans is actually going to Netflix. And you're probably wondering, wait, I thought it was on DC Universe exclusively. Well, it's actually going to Netflix for those fans that are overseas. So the non-domestic, non-American audiences are going to actually be able to watch Titans in its entirety on Netflix. Now, what's your take on that? Do you think that's a good idea or not so much?
I think it defeats the purpose of having the app then, or at least getting the whole DC universe package or whatnot.
And that's a great point.
If it's not something exclusive to their services, then what's the point?
Right. So here's my take on this, and I've heard that exact response from a lot of people. And this is me trying to understand things from the big business side of things because, all the businessy things I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I see this as Warner Brothers going, hey, it's not easy to convince people overseas about our streaming service when there's a million of them. So what we're going to do is wet people's whistle because there's already a great install base for people who have Netflix, especially overseas. So what you do is you kind of do you dangle a little bait out there in front and you go, oh, hey, you like Titans? You like Netflix? Watch them, love the show, and then once you do, we're going to take Titans, pull it, and then we're going to put it exclusively on our app. So you have to get our service to watch the show now. And
well, I would counter that argument if the people overseas, or at least outside of the U.S., they watch the show, they like it. Will Netflix allow DC to advertise their own service?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, they're not going to advertise it on Netflix. Like, hey, now, yeah.
The people overseas, there's no way they're going to know that show is going to leave Netflix after it's done.
I mean, I think it's just like everything. You just put out your advertisements for it, and if people like it, people will know. Oh, my favorite show is going away. Like when you hear your favorite show is getting canceled, or like I can't tell you how many times I heard that Last Man Standing was moving to Fox in the last maybe 2 weeks here, and then everyone knows, oh, I got to watch it now on Fox, and then they go over there and they watch it there. I'm sure DC would put on a bigger campaign to get everyone excited to go and watch it over on the streaming service. I don't think it's as terrible and world-ending. I do feel like in some respects it might have been improper planning by them because you should have come right out the gate and said that, whether that was your plan or not, or if it was a last-minute decision. I can't speak to that, unfortunately, but I know that, they had some plans because I talked to their president and it felt like they had a good idea. So I don't know if this was the plan all along or what they were trying to do, but you could tell that they were teasing people online over Twitter like, oh yeah, this stuff is inevitably coming to the DC universe, but you people overseas are probably not going to get it right off the bat. So I think it's kind of poor on their messaging with it all. They should have just come right out and said, this is what we're doing, point blank, so that it wasn't any muddy waters, but it is what it is. Either way, I'm excited that people overseas just genuinely get to see Titans now instead of having to wait like a full year. So that's what we got with Titans there. We do have a little bit more on the Titans world. Dick Grayson and Jason Todd, we get to see them in a little teaser photo of them teaming up. And then there's a little video clip that comes with it too, which you guys can check on our site. On top of that, I have actually seen Titans, and it is pretty good. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, it's the greatest thing I've ever seen, but it is really good. It is very dark to start, and it's like I've said in previous episodes that I think that their intention with the series was to go very much like TNT style with everything, where it's dark and it's brooding, but like as each episode goes along, things start to lighten up. And I can't, I'm embargoed still on what I can say because I can't really spoil it. But even the promo image that just came out in this last week, we see the Titans now with a white backdrop around them, even though they're still in kind of their dark costumes. So whether it was their plan to go dark the whole time or not, I mean, it's lightening up just like I said it would. And I know that it's going to get more comic book friendly as the show progresses, like all the CWDC shows have done as well. So, yeah. Do you want it to lighten up in tone, or do you like it as kind of like this dark and gritty thing?
I think it's borrowing from the CW formula.
A little too heavy?
It's just none of these characters really. I don't know. It's very mixed, but the trailer for me it's just very off-putting.
I will say, like, the focus is very specific on certain characters for the first 3 episodes. So, like, what they do with Beast Boy going forward, like, you see him, he does his thing, and again, I can't say what he's doing, but he is a good character. I just want to see more of him, and it seems like the second they introduce him, all of a sudden the tone starts to lighten up and things start to, branch out a bit more instead of being like this, heavy crime drama with some powers mixed in. Yeah, I think it's going to lighten up, and it's just the inclusion of bringing everybody together that's going to kind of open everything up, I guess, to put it simply. So I'm really excited, honestly. I mean, the fact that they use Hawk and Dove as much as they do, I mean, what they do with them is so cool. I really enjoy the show. So I do recommend it. I'm not saying it's got to be everybody's must watch. Like, I'm sure some non-DC fans will be like, maybe it's not for me, but I would at least give it a B rating, if nothing else. So look for that when it drops. I think it's October 12th, so very soon here. I'll be able to do a review on it. I actually am going to send you the first 3 episodes so that you can watch them, and then have you judge, and then we'll do a full review on the first 3 episodes. On top of that, yes, the DCU is live. So if you guys want to go and get the DC Universe, I believe it's only $7.99 to start. If you want to do like I did and get the full year, they're not giving the additional 3 months anymore, but they are giving away like free prizes and stuff like that. So if you order now and all that stuff, you have a chance to win all sorts of cool prizes. So yeah, I think it's worth it. I mean, for the comic book collection alone, I'm blown away by the comics. I thought it was going to be like expansive enough, but like, it'd be like 2 full runs of Superman, 3 full runs of Batman, maybe 1 run of Green Lantern, and then just various titles across the board. But I mean, they've got a lot of deep cuts of stuff too. Like I was reading the original Batman comics, which I mean, I've never truly read through them before. So to actually watch like the origin of the Joker for the first time, and to see how closely he is to a topic we'll be bringing up later, which is Joaquin Phoenix, I'm very excited to see what they end up doing with him, and it could be really cool. So the comic books are great. The community is not as volatile as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be a bunch of like Snyderites kind of hate speech and everyone fighting with everybody, and it was actually a really nice community, and like the movies, the TV shows are all great, and it sounds like they're going to be adding like a new set of titles with almost every single month. So I think we have a lot of content to look forward to on top of a lot of great content that's already there. So in total honesty, Brad, are you, as the Marvel fan, are you at least interested in what the DC Universe has to offer in terms of things that maybe aren't Titans?
Not really.
Okay, I was going to say, it's okay to say no. It's not a problem.
Not really. I mean, they have older content than some of it I've already watched. The original Batman cartoon was really one of the few things I actually liked at DC.
Yeah. And
never got into Titans or the Justice League animation stuff, even though like the animation style is like really good.
Yeah, the animation is, Bruce Timm and all that stuff. So that's, a kind of continuation from Batman, like the Superman animated series that came on almost immediately after Batman ended. It's almost the exact same style, just without the dark setting around it. So
I honestly, like the only thing that's really gotten me into DC is the CW shows.
Well, there you go. I mean, and I think they're coming.
I can watch those without the DC app.
That's very true. Yeah, all you need is like the CW app or just normal TV. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you my pass to get into our subscription, and then you can go through all of it. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. And if you do, awesome. I made another fan. Anyways, we're moving off of the DC universe to talk about more TV, which is over in the DC CW verse, as you just mentioned there. We're going to have our first look at the new crossover, and we've been talking about it for quite some time now. It apparently is now going to be titled Elseworlds, obviously referring to the comic book Elseworlds line that came before. Will it have a direct connection to those comics? Probably not, but what we do know is what's going to be taking place, the characters and the cast and everything that's happening. So as I mentioned, I think on our last episode, we've got Flash, Supergirl, and Arrow. So Legends of Tomorrow, Black Lightning, not included in this. They're kind of simplifying it down, but they're also doing it so that they can add additional characters that we've never seen before, one of which is Lois Lane. And Lois Lane is going to be played by Elizabeth Tulloch, who fans may have seen on Once Upon a Time over on ABC there. I think she is a spitting image of Lois Lane. The one thing that I was thinking about, too, as I was we're going through all the Lois Lane stuff and everyone's hyping up her appearance on the show. Well, first of all, I want to ask, do you think that she looks like a suitable Lois Lane?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Like they nailed it with her look. But what was funny, like someone showed me an image of Lois Lane, I think maybe like a 90s incarnation or something like that. And I could not believe how much our, now former Black Canary, Katie Cassidy, if you dyed her hair black, looks exactly like Lois Lane. And I was saying it to one of our fans on Twitter. I was like, wow, I never noticed that before. And, we had a whole back and forth. And, I'm genuinely convinced that I would have loved to have seen Katie Cassidy be Lois Lane at one point, especially after what they did with her as Black Canary and how that all ended. But it's fine. She's got a role. She's doing her thing. She's the Black Siren now, and that's fine. And it looks like she's going to have a lot to do on this season of Arrow. So a lot to look forward to with her in that season. Obviously, we've had clips and trailers for everything surrounding the CW shows, which are coming this month. So don't really want to spend a whole time talking about every single one of those. But yes, there's a lot of good stuff coming from CW TV. But there's also some bad, and I think one thing we should bring up is the first look at Chris Klein as Cicada. Have you seen this image, Brad?
Actually, no.
Okay.
I have not yet.
So to put it in the simplest description I can think of, have you ever seen the Jim Carrey movie The Mask?
Yes.
Okay. Now, before Stanley, the main character, puts on the mask, it's green and it's like wood and it's kind of like blocky and all that stuff. Imagine that spray painted black, but with like more bumps to it. That is basically what we're getting with Chris Klein in this Cicada mask. Now, I don't know if that is what the final look is, but for some reason they chose to show that as the official image of Cicada. And for those who haven't followed Cicada in the comics, Cicada has actually had like white hair, the whole Fu Manchu kind of thing, like the old kind of Grand Wizard look to him. So to see it go in this direction, I'm like, I have no idea what they were thinking with this. And I'm sure it's going to make sense for the course of the show and all that, but I don't know. It's just very weird. And you have to see the
honestly looks like something out of some really bad sci-fi movie.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not even that their budget is bad, because they can do all these crazy cool things with the show, but I don't know what the direction is, and that's what has me most curious about the whole thing. So we'll see. I mean, it could be terrible. It could make perfect sense, but I'm just looking at this like, this is the image you guys chose to show, and it's just very surprising. As we continue on here, there is some more crossover castings and people being introduced. So we've got Oliver Stephen showing that he's in the chair and he's got this green goop all over his face. So some people are saying it's a face mask. Some people are saying that it's him finally getting the mustache and the goatee combo. What do you think they'd be doing by putting like a face mask on Oliver? Like what would Stephen Amell be doing?
A face mask?
Yeah, it's like that green goopy. It looks like that Gak stuff or the slime stuff from 90s Nickelodeon. It's like all over his face, and he's sitting in one of the makeup chairs with that applied on.
God, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe there's something that happens in the season where he gets covered in green or something. I don't know. I can't. Really
I don't think it's that literal. Yeah.
I can't think of any practical use. They would have
maybe it's like a fake attempt at his death, and they're like trying to create like a model of him so that they can show his head being cut off or something. I don't know.
Or maybe it's like his new face paint, I guess. I don't know. Instead of using the typical eye cover.
Yeah, I just went way too dark with that one. I don't think Oliver's dying in this season. But anyways, as we continue on, his wife, weirdly enough, has been cast in the crossover this season, and she's going to be playing Nora Freeze, the wife of Victor Freeze, who of course becomes Mr. Freeze. What do you think of her being cast as Nora Freeze?
You said Arrow? You said wait, who'd you say?
Cassandra Amell, his wife.
Oh, interesting.
In real life, is going to be playing the wife of Mr. Freeze.
Oh, okay, because that sounded weird at first.
I know. Even as I wrote that on my notes, I was like, I don't know if that's going to make sense to people, because I put that out on Twitter the same way, and I'm like, the wife of Amell is the wife of Nora Freeze, and like, yeah.
Honestly, it'll probably have some. It'll play into Ollie losing Laurel, and then maybe he sympathizes with him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest reveal out of it is that we're getting Mr. Freeze in the crossover episode, and he hasn't even been cast yet.
Maybe there's some Gotham connection there.
Oh, there's got to be, because what I've been hearing is that they go to Arkham. There's apparently actually, I think we even talked about it in the last episode that they cast a gentleman who's going to be kind of like the how do I put it? Like the overseer of Arkham Asylum, and then things go crazy. So I think really most of the crossover is going to happen through this big Arkham Asylum kind of event that happens there. And I'm sure Supergirl, Arrow, Flash will have to help Batwoman as they bring everybody back into Arkham and bring everybody to justice. So I'm kind of curious to see how it all plays out. But just the idea that we get Mr. Freeze again, and probably done better. I mean, like, I don't hate the one that's on Gotham, but like I want to see like the full blown Mr. Freeze that I think people come to expect. So that, and we have the Monitor has been cast. LaMonica Garrett, who I'm not really truly familiar with his work, but he does look like they could put the prosthetics on him and he would look exactly like the Monitor. I think the simplest way that I could compare him to someone from the comics for you, Brad, would be almost like the Watcher. Owatu, I think his name.
The Watchers, yeah.
Yeah. And he's most notably known for the whole Crisis on Infinite Earths line, but obviously this isn't that. So I think, if nothing else, he'll be overseeing this whole thing and get involved and create the crossover that actually happens, so that Batwoman, because I think Batwoman actually exists in a different universe than Flash, Arrow, and Supergirl. Actually Supergirl exists in a different world too. So, it looks like the Watcher the Monitor will probably bring them all together. It's going to be a very interesting crossover this year. I can't wait to see it. What are your highest expectations for this year's crossover?
I hope that they don't screw up Batwoman.
I agree. That's a good one.
And then I guess, I don't know, maybe a couple of, added characters that we haven't foreseen yet.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Ruby Rose alone just being cast as Batwoman has me excited. I mean, then all the other stuff that goes around it. I mean, it's going to be a jam-packed crossover this year, and it's going to have so many new things going on in it that I think it's probably for the best that they didn't include Black Lightning and the Legends, because you'd have too many moving parts, and I think you keep your base characters there, and then you add some fun additions around it, and you just make the CW DC universe that much bigger. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be really good this year. Moving off of the CW stuff, we have a little bit of news from Gotham. Not a whole heck of a lot, but Shane West has now been cast as Bane's father. I would have liked to have seen him just play Bane, frankly, but again, we're talking about younger days of Batman, so probably makes sense to have his father involved here. His father is a big to-do character from the comics. I won't even go into his whole history, but just the fact that they're bringing him in, I think that's awesome. And then we also have them kind of teasing Joker being more involved this season, like an actual real interpretation of the Joker coming from Cameron Monaghan, which I cannot wait to see him go full force, because he's already been amazing for 3+ seasons at this point. So we'll see how he ends his run as the Joker, and maybe a very definitive version by the end of this season. And then lastly, that we might be getting Jim Gordon wearing that famous mustache of his. They've been teasing it. What of those three things stands out the most to you? Are you excited for any of those?
I definitely think seeing the iconic Gordon look would be a nice change of pace.
I don't really even care about the mustache that much. I mean, I do because, comic books and all that. But as cool as that is, I'm actually the most excited to get the Joker in like a full form, because you know how I feel about the current Joker movie that's coming, and we'll talk about that obviously more. But
yeah,
I wish Cameron Monaghan could be like the definitive Joker for like the next 10 years, because I just loved what he was doing with that character, and they gave him so much to work with. Even though they can't actually call him the Joker, and there's all the reasons behind that, like the way he portrays him just feels like a combination, and I think I've said this before, of like Mark Hamill meets maybe a little bit of the Christopher Nolan version that we got. And I'm just disappointed that it ends after this year. Like, we won't get it anymore. But I don't know, maybe the new Joker will really surprise me, and we'll be talking about the movie and everything thereafter. But I've actually got one more bit of news, and this just came to us right before we got on air here, and it's that it's back over on the DC Universe stuff, that Matt Bomer may or may not be our new Negative Man for Doom Patrol. Do you want to see Doom Patrol? Because I think you kind of teased it at the very beginning.
Doom Patrol seems kind of cool. Yeah. I think that I would like to check that out.
I think I like wet your whistle with the idea that it's like DC's X-Men. So you're like, oh, X-Men. But yeah, Matt Bomer, who people will know from like White Collar and those kind of shows. He's great in movies as well. Too many to list off right now, but I think that he's a perfectly suitable candidate for pretty much any superhero out there. He's been looked at for Batman. He's been looked at for Superman before. So the fact that they're at least using him for some sort of hero, which is ironic because he's going to be pretty much covered up in bandages the whole time, and he's a good-looking dude. Kind of surprising that they go that route, but I think him being any superhero is enough to get me excited. So having him be Negative Man is going to be great. I think that's it for all of TV talk actually this week. So let's move on to our number 2, which is actually going to be talking about the Batman side of the Marvel universe, or of the DC universe. So first of all, we've got Matt Reeves, and Matt Reeves has been teasing his involvement with like the Batman universe very subtly over Twitter, recently going to like a Batman 66, the whole Adam West kind of exhibit. Going to tease like a Gotham thing and all that. So he's definitely getting in Batman mode, but obviously you can only say so much. He's turned in his first draft, and apparently Warner Brothers loves it. They really want to push this thing forward. So we're definitely getting Matt Reeves' Batman sooner than later. Now, what's interesting though is, well, I'll put this to you, Brad. Do you think that we're going to get Ben Affleck in the role, or we're going to get a brand new Batman?
That's a tough one. It kind of intertwines with whether Henry Cavill is still in or out. And this is why I say this.
Okay.
That's why I say this.
Yeah.
If you introduced both of them as Superman and Batman.
Right.
You had them in the same movie twice.
Right.
And if Cavill is out, I think you have to let Affleck go as well.
Okay, so
you have to. I think
yeah.
Just simply recasting someone else in that role and just saying, "Oh yeah, it's the same Superman." The audience is going to pick up and say, "This is not Cavill," or this is not Affleck. So if they're going to potentially recast Superman,
yeah,
I would say let Affleck go to his rehab or whatnot, because he's kind of had issues lately.
Yeah.
But just you have the ability to do some weird infinite worlds. Barry screws up time and someone else's Batman, or it's a different Batman. Take
right.
that opportunity. Take the opportunity and use it.
So, and I don't disagree with that. Actually, I agree with a lot of those points. But what I think is actually going to happen, because the other part of our news with all this is that we've seen Ben Affleck, and he's been going out, he's been working at the gym. Actually, what's very interesting is there's an image that just dropped like last night, and it's him super shredded. Like, he was looking a little flabby, out of shape. People were making fun of the back tattoo that he had, all that stuff. And now he looks like he's in Batman shape again. And on top of that, Kevin Fujihara and I want to say it was Toby Emmerich, the two like heads of DC and Warner Brothers there, went out to see him, and then he walked out days later, not from the same meeting obviously, but in a different one, with a giant thick script in his hand. Now, I know that some of the studios will release a digital script and then give that out to the public and all that. Give that out to their actors and all that. But they still do give out physical scripts, despite what some people who I had conversations about this with wanted to argue, because I saw physical scripts on the set of Debs when I was there. But anyways, I think that Ben is being courted for some movie project. Now, I think he has another one for Warner Brothers, but that one doesn't have him getting super shredded like he's looking. So I'm leaning towards Batman. And in terms of what you said with Superman, which I don't think we had a whole lot to say about Superman this week, but I'll quickly say the whole is he in, is he out thing that we talked about on the last episode, I think isn't as big of a deal as they're making it out to be. Actually, no, we did have a Superman to talk about briefly, but simply put on that, like, they're just going to move on to Supergirl. They're just going to put Superman on the back burner, because I personally believe that Danny Garcia, his manager, is probably playing a lot of hardball that they don't necessarily need to play. I think she's probably making him out to be like, kind of how The Rock is, like, just put your face out on everything. When it comes to being Superman, you're better than this. They should treat you better. And that's not totally wrong, because especially with what happened in Justice League, I'd want to be treated a little better too. That being said, I think that they're just going to keep butting heads for a while. They're going to move on with Batman, have him and Wonder Woman be good, and, keep adding all the various other characters in the universe. And then when they finally figure out something that works for Superman, they're going to do it. It just sucks, because I really wanted at least one more Man of Steel movie, whether it's Man of Tomorrow or whatever they would call that sequel. I wanted at least one more from him. So we might have to play the waiting game on this. We'll have to look forward to The Witcher if we want to see more Henry Cavill. But the reason why I really don't think, aside from the whole, Affleck getting shredded thing, that they're not going to completely like gut both of them, is the fact that even if they got rid of the two of them, you've got Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman's doing fine. And Wonder Woman was introduced in Batman v Superman as well anyways. So, the thing that I would love to see is complete continuity, but especially the way I've been hearing it from the internet and how everyone's responding, and they're like, blow up continuity at this point. We've seen Marvel do the fully connected, everything's with this and that. Now everyone wants to do like standalone films, and we want to be like the, separate Batman movie or the separate Wonder Woman film. And I'm like, hey, if you want that, I love a connected universe.
Honestly, I think DC Films is just following trend. And that's the problem.
No, I think they're going with the response after Justice League, where everything was too connected too fast.
But that's the thing; they're just being responsive. They're not getting ahead of anything.
Oh, it's
They're
definitely
simply
responsive. And I disagree with the idea to be responsive like that. having a response is always good, but having a response that's an immediate jerk reaction isn't the best way to go about it.
The tone of Justice League was a direct response to Batman vs Superman.
Oh, absolutely, and that's why it failed.
Neither one worked.
Yeah. Oh,
regardless of how much you actually.
I will say that one's opinion, because even though I disagree that Justice League or on what they did with Justice League, there are a lot of people who will defend that as one of the better DC movies, which I don't agree with, but whatever. Everyone has their own thing. But it was, I personally believe it was an immediate tonal decision and shift that made no sense for what they were doing, and it hurt them at the box office. It hurt them with their universe and everything. So the idea that they would go to more standalone style movies for a while, and then maybe down the road, Wonder Woman and Aquaman have interacted. Let's have them fight like they did in, Flashpoint or something like that. That sort of thing can happen. I'm okay with them being kind of separate, but come back together later. I just want them to be good. That's what I keep saying to everyone. I was like, I just want everyone to be happy when they walk out of a DC film and not be jaded and I had thoughts that were different from your thoughts and we're all bickering about it now. I just want everyone to be like, that was a good movie. And just that. That's all I want people to say. So, that's enough on that. The only other thing that I wanted to connect with all of the Batman stuff here at our number 2 talk is the Joaquin Phoenix Joker stuff. So I don't remember if we talked about it, your feelings on it in the last one. What do you take away from the Joker Joaquin Phoenix standalone Elseworlds, whatever you want to call it, version that we're getting right now?
A TV show?
No, the movie.
Oh.
The Joaquin Phoenix one. Yeah.
WB has this obsession with trying to get the Joker right. They tried with Suicide Squad. They tried doing it in Gotham.
Well, okay. What I will say with this is it's not so much that Warner Brothers was chomping at the bit. We need to make as many Joker movies as possible. What I found out was that they were looking for the artistic, the auteurs kind of directors and people who had a really good idea to present. So when this script that was apparently presented by Todd Phillips, the director, and was going to be produced by Scorsese, was presented to them, they thought this is a cool idea. And with them trying to push for all these standalone movies and the response that Jared Leto's Joker got, they thought that this would be a good way to go. But I digress because
again, it's a response movie.
Yeah.
The Joker in Suicide Squad, he was way too gangster and he was way too nuts. And now we got to make a Joaquin Phoenix movie with him being the Joker. And
I agree. Go ahead.
It looks for now it looks okay, but story wise, how do you make that work? Right,
and it's the same thing. Well, almost the same thing as when we talk about Venom, for example. The idea of even there's the line from Heath Ledger in I think it's it's A Dark Knight where he's you and I are destined to do this forever, and I think there's another line too that's that how he needs him. Why would I be me without you? That sort of thing. The idea that there's no Batman in a world where the Joker exists is very odd. Now I know it's a standalone film, and I know it's set in the 80s, so it's not set up with Batman's current world, with Affleck and all that stuff. But at the same time, it's you need Batman to be there. And while it can be a good movie on its own, and I've been having a lot of people fight me on this, I'm very surprised at how many people have come out in serious defense of this Joker movie. This is going to be one of the best DC movies of all time. And I'm I honestly don't know where the head of the internet is at. The individual minds that come up with these thoughts and theories of how things should or should not be is very interesting to me, because in a world where I keep hearing, you need to have more DC standalone movies, and it needs to be focused on the core DC characters, obviously Flash and Aquaman and Batman and Superman and all that stuff, and getting those out of the way. At the same time, they're like, you know what? Fuck Batman. We're just going to have a Joker movie, and everyone's going to love it. And I just don't understand why we need to have that. And it's very weird. But I will say, the more I keep seeing this, the more I'm loving this version of the Joker. Even if it is its own weird little universe off to the side that's not connected to anything, it does look like a good Joker, and I love what Joaquin Phoenix is doing. Some people are even speculating that at like the very end, Batman shows up and messes with him and whatever, throws him into Arkham or whatever. But I'm not gonna lie, I've been liking the images I'm seeing. I'm just still of that mind where I'm like, why does this need to exist? You know?
Yeah.
To your point. But we do have another casting announcement. Originally, we were saying that Alec Baldwin was going to be Thomas Wayne in the film. So there is some level of connectivity at least. But Brett Cullen now, who someone told me he was actually in The Dark Knight. I'm not exactly sure. I didn't fact check that one. But Brett Cullen is going to be playing Thomas Wayne now in this movie. So he does look the part. I mean, I would have actually really liked to have seen what they did with Alec Baldwin in the role. But I think Brett will be a suitable candidate for that character. And I don't know if you saw this, and I will say this is a little kudos to DC on this one. There's a subway map. Because they filmed some subway scenes where like Joker bursts out, and then there's a whole bunch of other clowns in masks, and then he takes off his clown mask and then throws it to the ground, like he just planned this big orchestrated thing. And someone spotted the subway map, and the subway map has all the different streets, and it's showing like Bloodhaven, I think there was Burnside, like Batgirl of Burnside, and all these different like DC related things on this map, and everyone thought it was cool. And then they started reading all of the street names and all the little cities they're in, and they're all references to like comic book creators. Like there's ones that say Snyder, although Snyder seems to think that it's a reference to Zack Snyder, which I thought was really funny. And there's all these different influences in there. Even one that goes back to the original Superman movie, where Otis, the kind of bumbling goofball sidekick that was Lex Luthor's henchman, he says, oh yeah, like when they divide off this part of the world, you get this little stretch of land, and he's going to call it Otisburg. So there's a little thing on the map that says Otisburg. So some really cool stuff in this, and like I love the attention to detail, but I'm very skeptical as to the thought process that said, like, hey, we need to have this weird standalone Joker movie still at the end of the day. So I hope it's good. A little sign of good news, too, is that Bradley Cooper, who's been getting a lot of good reviews for the upcoming movie A Star is Born, he's now going to be set to produce the movie, this Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie. So, maybe they're putting a lot of stuff into this, and maybe it'll turn out to be good. But I'm just like, the level of attention and care that they're trying to put into this movie could totally be put into like a Flash or a Green Lantern movie, and like really get the base characters of this universe out there. But instead you're working on Joker. So I'm a little befuddled about the whole thing, but it is what it is. Let's move on to our number one talk. And this is going to be kind of a combination of team ups that DC is planning for this upcoming year and beyond. So first of all, we've got Birds of Prey. Some actual official news here. It's not rumors and speculation. Birds of Prey finally has their cast members. They've got Black Canary and Huntress now being cast. Journey Smollett, who weirdly enough, I didn't realize this. She was Michelle Tanner's friend on Full House. The one with like the braids in her hair and all that stuff. And I watched her for years, and I had no idea that's who she was. She's going to be our new Black Canary.
Huh.
Which, okay. Let's just call out the whole elephant in the room situation. Yes, she is African American. And at first I was a little taken back by that because I thought it was a weird choice. And we had heard this through our source for a while. We might have even said it on a previous episode that she was being looked to be cast. And while I didn't think that it was a bad idea to cast her because of race or anything like that, I felt that anytime I had seen her in movies as she'd gotten older, that I felt like she was a little too shy for the brash and brazen style Black Canary that I think of from the comics. Because obviously anyone can dye their hair. That's not a big deal. Like, not a big deal there. But like, I just don't know if she fits as Black Canary. And then I think it was Dat Trinity, one of those guys that, likes to make the mock versions of what a hero will look like on Twitter, did one where it's her in the suit, her with a little bit of blonde streaks in her hair. She looks like a dead ringer for Black Canary, and I'm really getting sold on this. And then, of course, as I mentioned, Huntress, and Huntress is going to be played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Again, a person who I've seen be very shy and coy and like kind of standoffish. But again, I was just watching the remake of, I should say the prequel of The Thing last night, and I do really love that movie. And she can really be a kick-ass female, lead if you put her in that role. Or even like 10 Cloverfield Lane. She was great in that as well. My question to you is, do you like these castings, or how do you feel about them?
I'm okay with the casting for Huntress.
Yeah.
As far as Black Canary, I mean, I think you're going to get people.
Oh, it's going to happen.
That,
yeah,
regardless of who was cast. There might be people that were trying to get a more traditional Black Canary.
Yeah, someone who looks like Laurel from Arrow, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Like the blonde-haired woman. Maybe they're just trying to kind of play on the Black Canary and just make it an African American woman, and they'll kind of adapt the story from there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The DC's taken a lot of risks with some of these new movies, and
yeah,
hopefully they know what they're doing. But I can't really say that I feel confident with what they're doing.
That's fair. I mean, I don't think that her being diversified the way that they're doing it is terrible. Like the idea that they would go ahead and go, because one of the things with the Henry Cavill thing, they were like, oh yeah, through our unnamed, unverified source, we're getting a black Superman. It's going to be Michael B. Jordan. Now, first of all, that's not Superman, and no offense, and it's not like a race related thing, but there's never been any incarnation of Superman in the established continuity that is African American. What there is, though, is I always forget his name. I think it was like Kal-El, but he was from the multiverse, and there is an African American Superman. And if they found a way to logic it out where it was like, oh yeah, it's that Superman and he's coming over and it's going to be him as Superman, yeah, totally, I get that. But like, I don't ever want there to do that weird like retconning thing where like, oh, it's that same Superman, the classic iconic Superman, and then have him come in and like, oh yeah, well, we just had Henry Cavill, it's the same Superman, this is still Clark Kent and all that, and he's just all of a sudden he had a race change. Like that's the difference that I would say is where there's a problem. And from what I was hearing, that's what that report was going to be, was like, they're just going to swap him out and it's going to be that Superman. And that makes absolutely no sense.
Yep.
So anyways, now that we're past all that, we've got another team up, which I'm actually really excited about. And it's that Todd Stashwick has finally turned in his draft for Suicide Squad 2. Come on. Suicide Squad 2 is actually happening. I'm glad to hear it. Now, I just rewatched Suicide Squad 2, I think last week. I don't dislike it the way that I'd been conditioned to believe that I disliked it. Yes, editing is bad. They should have made Joker the villain. What I was surprised to find out, or to see on that additional experience, watching it again, I didn't hate they did that whole voiceover thing with her. The whole belly dancing thing, I didn't notice as much. I think a lot of people just like to make jokes when they've decided that a movie is bad, and it's not a great movie by any means, but like, I really still do enjoy that movie from beginning to end, despite the editing issues and all that stuff. And I do want to see a sequel. So the fact that they're pushing along with it and they want to, and the writer Todd Stashwick says that he wants to focus on developing the characters much better, which I think really was the biggest flaw of that film. The fact, editing issues. So. Yeah, exactly. Editing issues happen from time to time, and it is what it is. But But yeah, it's a focus on bringing those characters to life and making them feel like people you can relate to in some capacity or another. And then I know other people would argue that you shouldn't have like a movie based around villains and all that stuff, but I think it can work if done right. I mean, the animated film is very well loved by a lot of people, so if you can nail that, I think you can do it in live action and make it work. On top of all that, keeping with all this jokery kind of team up stuff that we've got, there is actually going to be a Mad Love style movie that's Joker and Harley, and apparently that has also been pushed forward as well. Interestingly enough, they've said that the movie is going to be like a combination of Bad Santa meets This Is Us. What do you think about that?
This is obscene. That sounds stupid.
I think it sounds ridiculous, but fun. Like, I would expect that from the two of them. Like, if you were like, Suicide Squad is going to be like This Is Us meets Bad Santa, I'd be like, I don't know. That's, you know, I don't need all the relationshipy stuff. It's weird because I think it could actually work, but I need to hear more from it. We'll be talking about Gambit later on, and there's something that was said about Gambit that I don't think it's as literal a translation that we think it is. But the one thing that I heard is that, like, Harley and Joker, I guess Harley goes and, like, meets Dr. Phil apparently in one scene and, like, goes to him about relationship advice, and then Joker comes, like, bursting in to, you know, fuck things up essentially. So I don't know. We'll see. Whether it happens or not, like, I didn't think this Joker movie was going to happen, but then we got that. So I don't know. We'll see. And then lastly, apparently there's going to be talks now resuming for Will Smith bringing Deadshot back to life. So wrapping all this up with all these team up movies and all that stuff, do you want to see any of these in any capacity? Would you like to see a Deadshot movie?
Not really. I mean, honestly, this just screams that WB is afraid to do any of their main, like, well-known characters because of poor box office, fan backlash, or a combination of the two. And they're just going to these side characters where there's little risk.
Yeah.
Deadshot, I mean, yeah, you got Will Smith going into it, but then what?
Yeah.
You got Birds of Prey. It's not really going to be a huge budget movie.
Yeah, they're trying to do smaller budget movies too. Like, even though Shazam, you would think would be like this big tentpole character, they put him over on New Line, which in my opinion, gives me more hope for the movie. But they're trying to make it a little bit more grounded, more funny, and all that stuff. And I think it actually really works. And the idea is that the movies themselves were returning a profit, but it wasn't as much because they were putting so much into it. And a lot of these studios like Fox and all them spent millions and millions and millions of dollars to try and make these things this big epic spectacle. So they're trying to do these side things where, like, oh, we're on the streets of Gotham and here's the Birds of Prey and they're going to take down a crime lord instead of big blue light in the sky. So I can understand the feeling of shifting away from all the special effects heavy stuff and just making a cool, you know, kick-ass movie where, you know, the effects are practical. But at the same time, I'm with you in that sense where I'm like, get your core characters right. Do Flash right. Do right by Green Lantern. You know, add in Hawkman for crying out loud. Or do a Martian Manhunter movie. I know people want that, but we never got him. Or even Cyborg. Cyborg deserved it. He was one of the better parts of Justice League, and they just, like, walked away from that. So get your core characters right. That's I will drill that into the ground until someone listens to me, or to you for that matter, because I know you're saying it as well. They need to get the core characters out of the way first. But again, you know, I'm excited if they're going to do a crazy Joker movie or a crazy Birds of Prey movie, just to see what they do. Because again, you know, I think we're to the point now where we as comic book fans can accept, you know, random character you haven't heard of as long as the movie's good. But I just want the core stuff. So we'll wrap up with DC there. What would you like to do next, Brad? Marvel or miscellaneous?
Let's do miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous it is. All right. Well, at the number 3 talk here, we've got all the trailers that came out, and boy, were there a lot in the time that we've been away. So first of all, we had a Mary Poppins Returns trailer. I thought it was garbage. And I'm sure Amanda is listening to me from the other room with the jaw dropped and about to give me the stink eye, but I didn't think it was much of anything. What did you think of Mary Poppins? I don't think it had. Yeah, I think it's a little too dark. Weirdly, and it's weird to say that. She just brought in a sign that says "Don't tell my mom." Her mom loves Mary Poppins. Now, I actually like Mary Poppins just like I do Winnie the Pooh, and I really enjoyed that new Winnie the Pooh version. It was a little darker, but it was very emotional, and I thought it was good for that. But at the same time, I'm looking at this Mary Poppins trailer, and I feel like it's a smidge too dark. I don't feel the magic, and I honestly feel like our new lead as Mary Poppins comes across a bit more cynical than I thought she would. Like, I always thought of Mary Poppins as just like, come along, kids. Like, I didn't get that vibe, that like happy, like spoonful of sugar kind of vibe from her. And I don't know. It just feels like a step off in some respects. And I had one person actually say to me when I started to criticize it a little bit, they're like, you're just saying bad things about it because you want Aquaman to do better than Mary Poppins. I'm like, first of all, two completely different movies. The audience that's going to see Mary Poppins is not the audience that's going to see Aquaman. So, I mean, yes, they are same box office week and all that, but like, I don't care. Like, I want Mary Poppins to do well. I'm just a little concerned that some of the magic isn't there. Any other thoughts on Mary Poppins before we move on to the next one? Not so much? Okay.
I mean, she's got the look down. That's about it.
Amanda just came in with another sign. She says, I like Sherry Bobbins from The Simpsons when they mock her.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I knew that was going to happen. The second I start talking about like Mary Poppins or Fantastic Beasts, we're going to go off the rails there. Well, that brings us to our next trailer, which is Fantastic Beasts. I actually really like it. And I know a lot of people are still in we hate Johnny Depp mode and blah, blah, blah. I really think this is a cool franchise. I've not watched the Harry Potter movies, and I promised Amanda that in November, because this month we're going to do all horror movies. That's why I was watching The Thing last night. We're going to do all Harry Potter movies throughout the course of November until I get caught up on the franchise. But I really like this trailer. I mean, it felt action-packed. There was a showing of Hogwarts, like I think it's their Grand Hall or something like that. So it had a little bit of the old with a lot of new. I really am just excited to see what this next one is. What is your take on Fantastic Beasts?
Never been into it.
Never at all? Like nothing Harry Potter, nothing? Okay. All right. Are you going to see it, though? I'm assuming no. Okay. All right. Yeah. So one yes, one no. As we move on here, I don't know if you've heard about this one, but there's this little movie called Bumblebee. It looks okay, and I think it's related to Transformers. I don't know. What do you make?
It looks good.
I know. I actually really like this one. I'm surprised.
I mean, Michael Bay has no input in it whatsoever, which is good.
See, I heard that like he's a producer, but in name only. Like I don't think he gets any actual involvement in it.
They sort of wanted to get away from the huge spectacle with like zero plot.
Yeah, it's really weird. Yeah,
they're introducing all of the Transformers from like the '80s cartoon, so they have an '80s look. So we get to see Cybertron.
Yeah,
we get to see some of the fun down there and how that kind of falls back and relates to Earth and all the events that happen on Earth with the Transformers. I actually think it looks really cool.
Yeah, and I'm totally with you.
Optimus Prime in his original form. It's
like
awesome.
His Generation 1 version of Optimus Prime. Yeah, and see that's what I like about it too. Like I really like the combination of the old and the new, because I'm not gonna lie, the Bumblebee that we get in this feels a lot like the Bumblebee from the other ones, but obviously like an older bee model or bug model, I should say. And I think it's cool, but at the same time, there's a part of me that's like, I almost wanted them to go completely with that whole 80s vibe and just go that route with it. But I guess you have to kind of blend it in a way that appeals to the...
Well, it does take place in the 80s.
No, I mean like the 80s, the Cybertron stuff that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Where they're on
just Cybertron and that's it.
Yeah, like I mean, I would just do an entire movie there, honestly. Kind of like the animated one they did from the 80s, because there was, if I recall, there was very little Earth in that, because they are on Earth, but I thought that there was a lot of Cybertron. I haven't watched those movies in forever, but it's the kind of thing that I do want to see from this franchise. I want to see them go and embrace kind of the goofier kind of elements, instead of it just being a jumbled mess of parts that are just forming on screen and, just doing insanely over the top things like pretty much destroying all of Chicago. I don't need to see all that. Just, kind of keep it simple. Have Autobots versus Decepticons, and that's all I need. So yeah, I'm very excited for this. And there is a little bit of a girl in her car kind of thing. The first one with Shia kind of had that boy in his car thing. So I'm liking what I'm seeing here. So it'll probably turn out to be all right. Will it be better than Aquaman? What's your take?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Choose your words wisely. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And as we move on to another trailer, we've got the Creed 2 trailer. What do you think about Creed getting a sequel?
I actually saw this trailer. I actually really like it.
Me too. I think it's actually a really good looking film. It's weird that Coogler didn't come back to direct, but he's kind of doing the whole moving on to bigger and better things. Obviously, he did Black Panther this year. Do you think that this will be as good, if not better, than the original, or where would you rank it?
I like better than the first Creed movie.
Yeah, because you could say the whole Rocky franchise. We'll just say compared to the original.
The original Rocky?
Creed.
Oh, I already think this has got the makings of being better than the first one. I mean, you're starting to incorporate a lot of Creed's personal and family life. And it sort of mirrors what happened in the Rocky movies, where his personal life and his family life were getting intertwined with boxing.
Yeah,
and you see some of the same themes. They're trying to tell him, you don't have to fight. This fight isn't really necessary. There's a lot riding on you other than just boxing.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a lot. It's good juxtaposition there.
I agree. I don't know if the level of struggle seems to be as great as it did in the first one, because the first one kind of felt like he came from nothing, was really kind of alienated from his father and all that stuff, and it was like trying to recapture the legacy and that name, and I thought that was great. This one feels more like the Hollywood sequel version of it, with still some heart and some depth mixed in with it. Because
you also got to remember that that Apollo Creed's son, played by Michael B. Jordan, he doesn't want his father's name originally.
Oh yeah, I know, Donnie Adonis. Yeah,
and he just didn't want anything associated with it.
Right,
and eventually in the first one he does kind of take up the moniker a little bit.
Yeah,
but he's sort of creating his own identity within it, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I love that they did that, and that's what I think is the driving force of that movie and what makes it so engaging. But at the same time, you move on to this one, and I don't feel like that sort of struggle for identity and that sort of thing exists as much, because I feel like he's more embraced the role, and now it's more of it's him avenging his father.
What's going to play a big factor is that Lundgren's character is going to be there again.
Oh, I know, and that's awesome.
Son, and that is going to. I think that's going to mess him up a bit in the beginning of the movie, or at least halfway through, because he's just going to be pissed off. He's just going to want to fight relentlessly and out of control. And I think Rocky's going to see that, and I think he's going to pull his best Mickey, and kind of curtail him away from trying to just make this all about revenge.
Actually, that brings me to a point that I wanted to ask you about, and that's: do you think Rocky's going to die in this?
No, I don't think so.
I do. No. I really do, because it seemed like they were teasing it in the first one. Like he collapses and everything?
No, I don't think he dies in this
I think they're looking for that emotional punch, and it's going to be Rocky dying in this one.
I don't know.
All right, well, we'll find out.
I don't see it happening.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, again, we'll find out when it actually happens, right? So the last thing is Ralph Breaking the Internet, the new trailer for that one. Do you think that this one was as good, if not better, and are you excited for this one?
I did see the trailer. I didn't see the first movie, though. But
oh, really? You never saw the first one?
Nope.
Dude, it's good.
But it honestly looks really hilarious. How they're like flowing through the internet and how they depict the Disney princesses is beyond funny.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, I will say this: my one biggest gripe with this sequel is the fact that it feels like a giant advertisement for Disney in a lot of the commercials, where they're like, "Oh, we're in the World Wide Web, and look at Disney," and then like it's a whole like it's almost like the magical kingdom is there in Disney, and then they're like, "There's Pixar, and there's Disney, and then over there's Marvel," and I'm like, okay, I get it. And to be fair, Warner Brothers has done it with their properties too. Like when Teen Titans Go to the Movies came out, they were like putting all their little plugs for Warner Brothers things everywhere, and I get that. Like studios are going to do it, but it's one of those things where even whether I'm a DC Warner Brothers kind of person or not, I look at those things and I'm like, please stop shilling out. I just roll my eyes at it. But I do think it looks really funny. I like the idea of the first one better because the web has been kind of already mocked and parodized in its own way by all sorts of mediums. I mean, you've had not too long ago, not Pixels, although Pixels is sort of related to this sort of thing. The Emoji Movie, where they went into the web and then they made a bunch of Twitter.
That's a bad movie.
Oh no, it is a bad movie. Don't get me wrong, but like they made a bunch of jokes about Twitter, and then there were little chirping birds over it and all that stuff. And like I feel like even though it was a bad version, and this will probably be a good version, I kind of feel a small sense of been there, done that. Whereas with the Wreck-It Ralph movie, I don't know, that one felt way more fresh. Like they were doing something interesting with the video game genre that hadn't been done before. But at the end of the day, I have full confidence that Pixar is going to knock this one out of the park. It'll be a great movie, just like the first one was. And you should definitely see the first movie, Mr. Video Games.
I'll see if I can get to it.
Yeah, you should. Well, anyways, let's move on to number 2 now that we move off of trailers. There is a combination of new directors and up-and-coming directors that we need to talk about. First of which is that Bond 25 finally has a director. Can you take a guess at who this might be?
Well, I already know the answer.
Yeah, you do. It's Cary Fukunaga. And I will say, I think this is a great pick. It's not the original choice, which I would have definitely gone with Danny Boyle. What do you think of having the former director of True Detective coming to do Bond?
I hope he stands his ground when he disagrees with Daniel Craig.
Yeah, definitely. He shouldn't be a yes man.
But I also did Fukunaga direct the first season or the second season?
First season
of first season.
Yeah, and then he left, I believe.
Oh, okay. So again, the first season of True Detective was actually kind of cool.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
So if I based on that, I think that's actually a good choice.
Yeah. He also did one of these things called it was on, I think it was TNT. It was called The Alienist. It had I'm trying to remember all their names, but a pretty good cast that I thought it was kind of like mid-century England and all that stuff. And I think it had what's his name, Daniel Bruhl, who was Zemo in Civil War, Luke Evans.
Oh, okay.
And it had Dakota Fanning, and it was the three of them. And I think there was like some weird murder conspiracy thing that happened in like it almost felt like a Doctor Who Sherlock Holmes kind of thing. And I really was engaged by what I was seeing from it, and I never got to check it out. But he's done some good stuff. I think he was even involved in It from last year, the remake that they did. So he's really good. My only question with bringing Cary on is it going to be too murder and surrealism focused? Because he's a very like trippy style director with the projects he takes on. And Bond is more intrigue and suspense and action oriented, in my opinion. So, do you think that his sensibilities are strong enough for something like Bond, or would you rather see Carey take on a different project?
No, I think Fukunaga was going to have some good influence on the film franchise.
Yeah. With the way that like Spectre and Skyfall kind of were in terms of tone, I could see him kind of match up with those.
Both are kind of very different.
I don't think they're that. I mean, the story is very different. I don't think their tone though is too far off.
They're pretty different.
I'll go rewatch them. Maybe I'm a little off on that one, but I got that kind of dark and ominous tone from both of them, but maybe I'm a little off on that one. I'll give you that. So anyways, moving on to other directors of note, one of which that I want to talk about very positively is Jordan Peele, and he has 2 new projects that are being worked on. One that this individual right here may or may not be a part of in the near future, which is Twilight Zone, and that one is definitely happening. I know through the people I know that it's being shot up in this area here, and they're looking to cast a bunch of people for different episodes that are coming down the pipeline here. What do you think about Jordan Peele doing Twilight Zone?
I think Twilight Zone has its due coming. I remember watching like old 60s versions that were, they're still kind of creepy.
Exactly. I still watch them on like Hulu or I think I've got it on Prime Video too, and I watch them, I would say maybe every other month, an episode or 3, and I don't know, there's just something timeless about those episodes, even though weirdly enough some of the visual effects and the prosthetics don't necessarily hold up. Like the story that's there though really gets you. And I'm very interested in this because I'm not exactly sure, despite the things that I do know, what the tone is going to be like. Is it going to be like when they tried to reboot the Twilight Zone and they tried to make everything modern and everything just somehow felt flat? Or are they going to do the whole black and white tone of it all and really keep it like this almost, I want to say noir style, but like just the idea that everything has like a retro timeless vibe to it. I mean, how would you do it?
I would just hope that they kind of make it different than Black Mirror.
Oh yeah,
Black
definitely.
Mirror has been sort of connected to the Twilight Zone, or at least the tone of it is somewhat like the Twilight Zone. Well, so I would hope that they would not necessarily just make everything modern and super technological like Black Mirror does.
Yeah, I would say that I don't think the tone is the same. I think it's a modernized take on what Twilight Zone probably would have become in a modern era. But like the idea to go back to the roots of it, have it be like slow, methodical, build to like this conclusion in like a very short period of time, kind of an episode, instead of, I think Black Mirror, weren't those episodes like an hour long?
Black Mirror, yeah, they're a little bit longer.
Yeah, like, or 45 minutes. I would think cutting it in half and do like a very short, like 22-minute style episode like the original ones were, and not necessarily make it about like how I don't know, like your cell phone is coming to kill you or is probing your mind or something like that. Like make it more broad and suspenseful, and maybe do something about aliens or whatever. I don't know. I'm sure greater minds than I will come up with something better, but expand it out, make it about, going to the other side and like, how that would be. I really have a good vibe coming out of this. I mean, Jordan Peele's been on a great run as of late, and the other thing that they're talking about is him possibly doing a Candyman reboot. Do you think he'd be the perfect director for doing Candyman or no?
I don't even know what Candyman is.
You don't know what Candyman is? Come on. The horror movie, the slasher movie from... Wow, really? Okay. So...
I've never heard of it.
Long story short, as the backstory goes, he was a former slave. I believe his hand was chopped off for sleeping with the farmer's daughter, and then he gets a hook for a hand. And he gets covered in bees. It's a weird kind of origin for the character, but basically he's like one of my friends described him as basically Black Freddy Krueger. The idea that like he had this very tragic thing where he was covered and doused in something that now is a part of him, and then he comes back to life and he torments people through scary images and little things like that. So Caprini Green out of I think the Chicago area, which I don't think exists anymore. Before they tore that down, the whole thing was that in this like the slums essentially of kind of an older Chicago, that's where he existed. He came back and he torments I forget who it was, but this actress, and it was this whole thing where he just made her life a living hell because you say, much like Bloody Mary, Candyman, Candyman, Candyman into a mirror 3 times, and then he comes out and then he goes on a giant killing spree essentially. It's the first one, and I think the third one, which I think was called like A Farewell to the Flesh, were pretty good. I'd recommend the first one. The sequels, you know, they kind of fall off like the RoboCop movies, but it's still pretty good though. I like them, and the idea that Jordan Peele would be doing it has me very intrigued. But I'm wondering how more modernized or fresh you could make this thing if you did it. I mean, do you think it's something that you'd be interested in checking out if they made it?
It sounds like a hokey horror movie.
It definitely fits into the slasher genre. So if that's not for you, then I wouldn't recommend it. As we move along here to our number 1 talk, we're going back to Star Wars. So a lot of Star Wars talk. I know, everyone's kind of come to expect us to have Star Wars on the brain in miscellaneous. So first of all, have you heard this whole thing about Ray Park?
No. What happened?
So with Ray Park, what happened was, I mean, we all know he plays Darth Maul, and spoiler alert for any of you who haven't seen Solo, but he's in it as Darth Maul, and he got fat shamed over the internet, and they're like, "Oh, look at him, he didn't hold up at all," and "Oh, look, he's out of shape," and like, okay, you can have
like 50.
I know, right? Like, yeah. Oh, sorry. Almost 20 years later that I didn't hold my own. But he actually did work out for the role, and then he had to. Well, he didn't have to, but he just kind of like posted a video of him working out for the role, and he's really in shape. So.
Oh, he's 44. So I mean,
I know.
still.
Yeah, I mean, like, I hope that someone who's as martial arts and that sort of. Athletically driven like a Stephen Amell holds up the same way when he's that age. So yeah, I don't see why he had to get fat shamed. Like, that was so stupid. He looked amazing when you see him. I mean, yes, you can have your problems with Solo, and I totally get that, but like, he actually looked like Darth Maul again, and I was super excited for that. That being said, people feel the way that they do, and he shut most of those haters down. So good on Ray Park, and I just put out there like, we just need to be better to each other. At the same time, we have some more stuff from the Star Wars world, one of which being the trailer for Star Wars Resistance, the CGI-ish animated, all about the Rebel Resistance pilots, whatever you want to call them, from the new trilogy that we have. What do you think about this? Have you seen this trailer?
Yeah. The animation, I personally, I like the animation style as opposed to you.
You do. I mean, what's the thing you like most about it, I guess, is my curiosity. I think the style is called cell shading. Yes, thank you.
And I've always been kind of a fan of it. It's a little bit different. As far as like the actual content of the trailer, it just looks like they're just racing, and then all of a sudden it turns into a training exercise.
Yeah. So
that they can fly for the Resistance, I guess.
Yeah, and then it seems like they start getting bombed, and like they start having real adventures. I don't know. It's just kind of weird, and I'm wondering. Well, first of all, in terms of like the artistic style of it all, there's something called I think it was the Iron Man Adventure or Adventures that was I think it was maybe like 2008. It came out like right after Iron Man did, And it was because it was riding on the popularity of it. It was on like Fox Kids or WB Kids or whatever those cartoon shows are now. And it was that kind of like CGI, cell shaded, whatever you want to call it, that style of animation. But it was much more in its infancy with all that. So it to me looked really sloppy. It did not, I don't know, I didn't resonate with it. I just thought this was one of those things that they're, old man Ryan had his problems with the new generation style of animation, and it didn't work for me. I couldn't respond to it. It didn't look like the facial animations really matched up, and there was all these little problems I had with it. And so then when I see this, I definitely could see from the first tease of it to the actual trailer that we got that it looks like it had improved. But there's still something about it that I've got my hangups about. I don't know. I'm not a fan of that animation in general so far. That being said, though, we move forward through this trailer, and then it does go from like, oh, we're just training to be pilots, and oh shit, everything's gone to hell, and we're being bombed and all that. My question to you is, where do they go with the story of it all? Is like, are they going to constantly be facing the First Order? Are they going to be facing other, creatures or other things that are going to try and attack them? I don't know how much longevity there is to an idea like this without there having been some sort of like action on the ground, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it just seems like it's sort of like Star Wars' take on Top Gun.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
I mean, it's a cool idea, but you also think about all of the people here that, all the pilots that don't make it.
Right.
It's sort of a morbid thought when you think about all these, like, these people are like, the people involved look like kids or teenagers and stuff.
Yeah, they get shot down, they spin out off to the right, and a lot of them are like really young, and they kind of dismiss it in the movies, but the more you think about it, like, there's a lot of dead teenagers on your hands. Get your shit together, Resistance. I don't know, man. It could be good. I got my guard up a little bit on this one. I'm hoping that, because we just saw some of the behind the scenes stuff of the new live action series from Jon Favreau, which looks more like we talked about it before. It could end up being more about the Mandalorian story between episodes 3 and 4, which I think that's kind of cool. I would like to explore that territory. That to me has me more interested, and I realize it's not animated or whatever, but that could be something really intriguing. Also with Star Wars, it looks like Brad might have gotten his wish. They're slowing down on some of the Star Wars movies here.
Good.
Yeah. I don't mind there being a great volume of anything. Like the idea that someone wants to put their artistic license or their artistic stamp on anything gets my approval. Like the idea that you had an idea and you wanted to see it through, great. Now, if it's divisive like The Last Jedi, which I'll be getting to in a second actually, because that's breaking news as of today, there is some hesitance about should you make more of these movies. But at the same time, like, I don't think that The Last Jedi was that terrible of a movie. And for the people that do like it, I hate the idea that because there's a feeling from other people that are not yourself that there should be a feeling of slowdown. Like, oh, I didn't like this, so let's just pump the brakes here and let's not make Star Wars movies the way that we did. And it could turn out more actually quality movies that everyone likes.
Quality wise.
And see, that's
going.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ever since Rogue One came out, personally, I think Rogue One was still pretty good.
Right. Yeah.
But then The Last Jedi, as extremely divisive as it was, I still don't think it was a good movie. And then they rushed Han Solo out, and Han Solo wasn't really the greatest movie either. Still some good parts to it, but overall, not that good.
Yeah, and the only one that I don't like out of this new set of films is The Force Awakens. I think it's the worst out of all of them. I loved Solo. I actually just bought it and Infinity War just the other day with Amanda. I still have not bought The Last Jedi because technically it's still on Netflix, but in my mind, I'm like, I should have bought it by now. Don't waste your money. Oh, shut up. Anyways, and I don't actually own Rogue One either, if I recall, but I do love that movie too. Actually, I think that would probably be my next one down because I like Rogue One, but it's really about the ending for me that I'm the most intrigued by. At the end of the day, though, like, just because I walked out of The Force Awakens unhappy doesn't mean that Star Wars should have just pumped the brakes and just, oh, well, you know, clearly some people are disappointed with this movie. And there were. I knew other people that really did not like The Force Awakens. And they were, you know, then there was that whole Mary Sue talk that came out of it. I think it's a PR statement and one that does make them look good. Like, oh, clearly they're getting their act together. But really, they're still going to make Episode 9. They're still going to push for all these TV series. I mean, like we just literally talked about Resistance and the Mandalorian-driven one that Favreau's going to do. And there's even in the same article, Bob Iger, who was making these apologies, mentioned the guys from Game of Thrones. I forget their names right now. The fact that they're still in production with theirs. So there's another set of shows. Like it's silly and it's almost hypocritical to say stuff like this, but people say it because it's just a PR statement. It's a way for people to go, oh, well, you were concerned. Well, the head of their division seems to believe that, you know, that they're listening to what you had to say, but they're really not. And I've been told by people in the industry, and I'm not going to name names and all that stuff, but like people are like, oh, things are definitely going to change. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And literally 2 months later, they come out with an announcement that just says, well, everything we just told you was a lie. And it's really frustrating. I want them to make that Obi-Wan movie. And I think that was really where they were going with this Bob Iger statement was, we're not going to do the Obi-Wan movie right away. We're probably not going to make a Han Solo sequel because they were originally planning a trilogy for him. And maybe that's really what it boils down to is maybe we'll get one more sequel or none at all. But I don't know. It just seems weird to make a statement like that when you know you're still doing all these other things that are definitely coming. So where would you like Star Wars to be at this point? I guess is where I'm putting it to you.
Oh my goodness. To be perfectly honest, without Kathleen Kennedy would be a start.
Which would have gone to our next thing, but yeah, keep going.
Start moving away from the original trilogy story points.
Okay, fair enough.
Force Awakens and Last Jedi hinges almost completely on, you know, the first 6 movies.
Okay.
And they originally said they were going to go away from that. Yet here we are.
Everything's connected.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what you would do is you would say like everything, the Force and the dark side and all that stuff, that still exists, but it's no Luke and Leia, no Skywalker
Just
sort of relationship.
Stop focusing on the Skywalker family.
Okay. What if it was the child of Lando Calrissian?
No, I don't care about
okay.
Lando Calrissian.
I know.
He's not a big enough character.
I was just sending that to you.
He's popular,
yeah.
But he has very little characterization. He wasn't really characterized well in Han Solo. So
I know.
You know why?
I triggered you. I was doing that sort of on purpose.
It's just,
Why Lando? Why does it have to be Lando? But yeah, so I don't know. I really like the idea of them doing the Obi-Wan movie. I think if you're going to do a TV series for Star Wars, cool, make it one. And then when that's done, move on to the next one. Kind of like what they did with Rebels. Rebels is over. Okay, we're also going to give you the final season of Clone Wars. Great. You know, I went from one Star Wars to the next thing and just kept it in a constant flow instead of jumping all over the place. We got a Star Wars over here and you get a Star Wars over there. And like, that's where I would say pump your brakes a bit is like, okay, one and then another and then another and another. And like, have it make sense. Don't just give me like 3 Star Wars at a time. That's where it gets a little messy. But to what you said before, you know, despite feelings of how Star Wars is gaining speed or slowing down or any of that stuff, one person who is not slowing down anytime soon is Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy's contract or agreement with the studio is extended for 3 years as of this week.
It's going to be some rough Star Wars content.
I will say two things on this. One, I can understand your rage on this. You're definitely having your nerd rage moment here. In this moment, I would say I don't hate Kathleen Kennedy. I know that everyone is like, oh, it's SJW related with everything she does. She is trying to incorporate some diversity. I don't think she loves the characters in the way that other people like I can't think of his name. The one who does the Star Wars TV series. Come on, Star Wars guy, you help me out with this one. But yeah, like I don't think she's the most well-read and the most knowledgeable on everything Star Wars.
It's about Favreau?
No. Anyways, no, it's the one who did like Rebels and who did Clone Wars. Yeah, I'm just picturing him with the cowboy hat, and I just can't think of his name right now. But anyways, the idea that there are other people, Dave Filoni, it just came to me. It was on the tip of my tongue the whole time. But yeah, that someone like Dave Filoni, who is just so knowledgeable about these characters and has such a love for the entire franchise, isn't really running the show. It's kind of disappointing. And I don't care if it's a guy, girl, black, white, it doesn't matter, any of that. Because I know a lot of people are like, well, it's nice to see a woman in power, and I agree. And I'm not necessarily a champion for her, but at the same time, I know that she's doing some good things to help diversify the product. And I think that's a good thing too, because we probably wouldn't have had a female lead, under the old regime if it was still over at Fox and all that stuff. They probably would have, probably had another male lead. It probably would have been like a continuation of the Skywalker saga and all that stuff. So I like the idea that they tried to expand things out. And even in The Force Awakens, even though Brad and I are very divided on this, like the idea that, or I'm sorry, in The Last Jedi, that the Force and specialness and all that stuff can come from anywhere is a really cool concept that I really responded to well by the end of that film. That being said, though, I think Kathleen Kennedy has done some good. I just think that there might be better people suited who love the product even more so than her, whether it is Dave Filoni or someone else that just knows this product so well, to really give it some life. And I don't know. We got 3 more years. Maybe if episode 9 doesn't do well, then maybe she gets the boot and we get someone else in her role, and hopefully that's changed for the better. But I guess at this point, are you excited for the future of Star Wars or no?
No, Kathleen Kennedy.
Okay, all right.
Seriously. She's just not... She doesn't understand the franchise and she doesn't respect it.
Yeah. See, I'm more upset with, I guess, Bob.
That's just my personal opinion.
I guess I'm more upset with Bob Iger than her, but I could see definitely an argument for why she's a problem of sorts for the universe as a whole. That being said, though, I think that's enough for Star Wars. I think we were going to talk about one more thing with The Last Jedi, just how little, it's a little thing, but apparently as of today, they were saying that a lot of the negative response that was generated came through this study that just dropped this week. And that was all involved with like Russians and bots and things like that were actually automatically generating negative responses for The Last Jedi to give this.
Oh my gosh. Can they just admit that not everybody liked that movie?
See, a lot of...
Is that such a hard idea? Such a hard concept?
This is what's very interesting about this to me is, and I say this maybe from the DC Warner Brothers side of things, where I'm like, people shit all over a lot of DC movies. And whether you love them or you hate them, that's fine. People did the same thing with The Last Jedi. And some of that I had heard was going to be kind of like orchestrated. Like people were like, well, because people don't like the Warner Brothers stuff, we're also going to not like go out and boycott Solo or boycott The Last Jedi so that it doesn't do well. And I'm not going to lie. I do feel like in some respects, there was some level of orchestration to try and not make it a successful product. And that sucks. I hate that we live in a world where people want to see DC fail or because they don't agree with it, that they're going to not go out to see whatever movie in protest. Same thing goes for Star Wars. I hate the idea that we can't just like go, oh, this movie looks good or this movie looks bad, and then just go either I'm going to see this or I'm not going to see this, instead of like protesting to the masses like, oh my gosh, if you see this movie, you're an idiot, and if you like this movie, you're also an idiot, or whatever. All this stuff is so much pageantry over something where we should all just be like gathering together in enjoyment of a product. And I don't understand why we have to make these big campaigns for why you shouldn't or you should see something. If you like it, you like it, you know? Yeah, Brad hates The Last Jedi. I love The Last Jedi. You know, to each their own. Everyone should be able to enjoy things in their own way. So that being said, I am sorry to hear that Brad is not excited for Star Wars going forward. But I don't know. We'll leave it to you guys. What do you make of the whole bot situation? Do you think that's all conspiracy nonsense or whatever? Email us. Let us know. We'll talk about that off the show. Let's get over into some Marvel. Not a whole lot over there. You ready?
Super quick.
All right. Super quick. So we've got 2 trailers on the TV side of things. Marvel's Runaways on Hulu, Season 2 trailer, and then Daredevil Season 3 trailer. Which of those 2 has you the most excited?
Daredevil for sure.
I'm actually going to go Runaways. I know it's going to sound like blasphemy because I really, really love Daredevil. But I was surprised at how much I actually really loved Runaways. That, I mean, some romances felt a little bit more forced than others, and they do kind of the kiddie drama and all that stuff that teenagers go through, and that's fine. And a lot of that actually is from the comics, but I was surprised at how much that cast really just, I don't know, I felt something with that. And Daredevil Season 2 was so good. Daredevil 1 was pretty solid as well. It's cool to see the Kingpin back. I'm excited for that. The idea that they're doing the Born Again storyline, where it's Daredevil's doppelganger and all that, is cool. But I'm a little bit worn out on Marvel Netflix properties. I think the hardest part about this is that they didn't wait till December. They're actually going to release Daredevil Season 3 in October. And we just got done talking with Raven Metzner about how great Iron Fist Season 2 was. That I need like a small gap, you know, like I need that summer break that we get with like the CW TV shows where it's like, okay, I had my distance. Now I'm ready to jump back in and watch another awesome thing. I think Daredevil coming so quickly is leaving me less excited, but where are you? You really think Daredevil is going to like blow people away this season?
I wouldn't say blow away. I think that's pretty strong word.
Okay.
That's sort of
better by comparison.
But I do think that it's going to be an improvement over Season 2. It's going to be, taking off right after the Defenders, basically where he got crushed, and then you see him in this little, I don't want to say monastery, but it's like a nunnery being taken care of and whatnot.
Yeah. I don't know if nunnery is a word, but I want it to be, so I don't know. Just put a smile on my face. I assume that's where the movie The Nun took place, was at the nunnery. But anyways, I don't know. I think they both sound really cool. And in terms of TV stuff, away from those 2, it looks like Marvel wants to put together female heroes. They don't have like a name for it yet, but it's a quote unquote female Marvel heroes show that's going to be from the writer of Wonder Woman and the creator of Young Avengers. What do you think about that? Do you want to see like a female kick-ass show on ABC? Like, how do you feel about that one?
Who's the character?
Oh, characters. It's going to be like different various female heroes from the Marvel Universe.
Well, they're just going to throw out just like random ones out there and just...
It could be like Kamala Khan. It could be She-Hulk. It could be almost like the street-level heroes of the Marvel Universe that are female. I think it could be good, but I would just rather have like a She-Hulk show, honestly.
Yeah, I honestly, like, street level ones, I mean, you already sort of get that with the Netflix shows.
Right.
I honestly think you'd have to pick a powered individual for that show.
Yeah.
And She-Hulk wouldn't be a bad one, but I don't know if the rights are still with Universal and whatnot, so.
Actually, I think She-Hulk is not, even though Hulk is, but I could be wrong on that one. It's that weird thing like Spider-Woman. Like I think Spider-Woman actually is over with the Avengers and all that stuff with MCU. They just haven't made a thing with her yet. So
Gotcha.
I don't know. Like my biggest problem with it actually is that it's on ABC, and we've seen what ABC has done with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
Agent Carter. I don't know
Agent
what
Carter
that was.
was
If that was
good.
like you getting
Agent
turned
Carter
on or
was good.
what?
Agent Carter was good.
I did. And like, I, as much as I liked it, and I liked it way more than Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I felt like there were quite a few times where it was kind of hammy and like filler episodes, but it was still a good series as a whole. And maybe this series would be good too, but I think what made Agent Carter work so much better is that it wasn't focused on special effects. Because when they do special effects for either of those shows, it is piss poor. I mean, like, wow. Like, it's like 90s Power Rangers level of special effects. It's not good.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it's so bad, because we live in 2018. Like, I don't, it is what it is. But, yeah, so if you do a whole show about female superpowered heroes, I like, unless you keep it street level, and that's why I said Jennifer Walters, She-Hulk, I'm genuinely worried that it would probably go off the rails really fast. But I would love to see the combination of them in any capacity in general. So we'll see. Moving on to our number 2, a lot of stuff from the MCU. First of which, we're getting a Black Widow Y2K movie, apparently, which I really want to talk about this one because it's not getting a lot of traction. Do you want to see this movie first and foremost?
Oh, first off, why is the emphasis on Y2K? I'm trying to figure that out.
Because everything has to be about a period or a theme with everything Marvel does. And I get that, but at the same time, I'm like, Y2K is oddly specific.
Well, it's kind of a spoiler. You know, nothing happens.
Well, see, that, apparently that's the feeling, is that she's the one that prevents Y2K from happening. Whatever her adventure is, she's the one that stops it from happening, which kind of cool, a little cheesy. One thing I wanted to bring up that it's an interesting tether to too is, you know what's also happening at the same time of the whole Y2K bug?
Oh, let me get, no, you know what? Go ahead.
Iron Man 3. Remember the intro?
What? Oh,
yeah.
That'd be
that Christmas party and everything. Like, it would be, I don't know. She'd really have to work in like a covert way. This is one of my problems with them going back with the Marvel properties, is like the idea that no one knows about Black Widow at this point, the idea that no one knows about Captain Marvel at this point, but yet, you know, here we are like 20 some odd years later, and then like, oh yeah, it's Captain Marvel. She's come to save the day. But like,
you still got that slight tie-in with Fury, just coming off of meeting him, Captain Marvel and whatnot.
Right. What I'm saying though is, like, in the Captain Marvel trailer, which we'll get to in a second, she flies through a Blockbuster Video, and no one talks about the woman who flew into the Blockbuster Video. I don't know. Maybe they do a thing where they're like, S.H.I.E.L.D. covered it up, which would be a smart way to handle it now that I'm thinking about it.
True.
But if they didn't, like, how are they not explaining this superpowered hero, you know, who can just fly in the sky, blast lasers, all this stuff? Like the way that they treated Iron Man in 2008, like I feel like they'd be even more over the top in the 90s seeing a character like this. So how are they going about keeping all this stuff, like characters like Ant-Man, because Ant-Man had all of his adventures before, you know, Iron Man's involvement, and whatever Black Widow's going to end up doing in this supposed Y2K film.
Well, I mean, you don't have the internet.
True.
So it's a lot easier to keep things under wraps.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
You have publicated stuff that is easy to kind of like, something happened, but, you know, people are blowing it out of proportion, and you don't need to worry about it, kind of thing.
I agree. Yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. I'm just very curious at how they're going to go about explaining. I mean, honestly, if you just say S.H.I.E.L.D. cover up, you could Men in Black the whole thing, and it would actually really save your butt. But I'm just really wondering how that they play this whole thing out. I'm very excited to see what they do with some of these properties they're talking about. Next one up is that Chloe Zhao is going to be doing the Eternals movie. We finally have a director for that. Do you want to see this movie, yay or nay?
I'm a little excited for it. I think there's definitely potential. But again, here's the thing. If Captain Marvel is just kind of mediocre and people aren't really on board with the whole Skrulls and Kree and whatnot, I'm not sure what the reception will be with an Eternals movie.
Well, I think it didn't help that the Skrulls look shitty. I mean, just really shitty. I hate that they're like this.
Yeah, they don't have like the pointy ears. They don't look like in the comics. They sort of look goblin-ish to a degree.
A bit, yeah. And I don't know, like the yellow and like the fact that they don't look very menacing. I don't know. I'm just not feeling like, even though no one's brought it up, when people were criticizing the shit out of Apocalypse, when they saw him and they're like, oh, he's Ivan Ooze, and like that just took off. I feel kind of the same way about the Skrulls here, where it's just like,
yeah.
I don't like the design. I don't feel threatened by them. I don't feel like there's like a real force to be reckoned with here. And, well, we'll talk about more with the Captain Marvel trailer, but it was just kind of disappointing to me. And I'm hoping that they improve upon it as we get closer to it, and maybe there's more that we haven't seen. So maybe by trailer 2, we're like, oh shit, this is going to be something. But I'm not really feeling it. And with Eternals, I'm very, I guess, kind of apprehensive to the whole thing, where I think it's going to be good, but I don't know how they're connecting it. I don't know if it's going to be like a loose spinoff in a sense to what we'd seen teased with Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, is it going to have this kind of over-the-top cosmic comical tone, or is it going to be this very serious?
I think it's going to have a more serious tone.
Okay.
I think Captain America, but sort of in space kind of thing.
That would be interesting. Yeah, because I mean,
like not necessarily like specifically. It's like actual Captain America in space. It's
yeah. I'm not expecting it to be like
same sort of. You're gonna have the same sort of levity that Captain America has.
Okay, yeah, that sort of tone. Hopefully. Yeah. I was gonna say I don't think there's gonna be any sort of like espionage and that sort of thing going on in space.
Oh,
but
no.
But yeah, I mean, from the DC side of things, I know to look at it as a New Gods but Marvel version of it. So I'm excited for it. I can't wait to see what they do. I just I'm not very familiar with Chloe's work, nor am I super immersed in the Eternals as a whole. So I'm really curious to see what they churn out here. Some castings would. And maybe a synopsis would really help, but we're moving along here. So Eternals seems like it's happening. As we continue on, I really wanted to bring up the Captain Marvel trailer, so I feel like now is the time to do it. So with the Captain Marvel trailer, I'm excited for it, but I really feel like this was a really underwhelming trailer. What did you think?
A little bit. In terms of we see her a little bit in action, and then talking to Sam or talking to Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D., and that's really all we get.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool because I think in the trailer too we see Monica Rambeau's mother, who herself, Monica would become Captain Marvel down the road, and obviously her and Danvers, that they're friends. Like, I think that's cool, but, like, I don't know. I felt like it needed some sparkle, some sort of magic, and I don't feel like there was that one, like, holy crap moment. And I feel like it's kind of sad when everyone's talking about the blockbuster video moment more than anything else in that trailer. I take that back. No, there was her hitting an old lady, which was obviously going to be a Skrull, or maybe some misdirect where she thinks it's a Skrull and it's actually not, which would be kind of funny. But
I think it's a Skrull.
Yeah, I think most people do. I'm just wondering, like, if they do a little swerve, because that would be kind of funny either way. I just think it's disappointing for a film when hitting an old person, whether it's a Skrull or not, or falling into a blockbuster video, is your selling point to a movie. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean it's bad. Like, when you see her light up with the blue flames and she's got the mohawk and everything like that, like she does from the comics, I thought that was kind of a cool bit of imagery, and that's why I posted up. I did better 1, better 2, because she lights up in the blue flame, and then she lights up in the red flames in 2 completely separate shots in that trailer, and a lot of interesting responses for that. I don't think anyone really had there wasn't a clear winner, so I think people are excited about it, but I feel like that's all I hear people talk about is really the blockbuster thing, and then hitting the person on the bus.
Yeah.
So
I think it'll take a second trailer to really sell people on it.
And see, that's what I said before, and like I totally agree that's what I'm really hoping for. Like maybe more inclusion of Nick Fury, or maybe you actually see what the alien threat is, because it was badass to see Ronan back, and I thought he really got a raw deal in the first Guardians movie. I'm actually hearing that he might be a good guy in this one. Like he hasn't completely like. To go back to our Star Wars talk, gone to the dark side, so to speak. Like he hasn't actually met Thanos or been involved with him in any capacity yet. So that would be an interesting tether to kind of explore, and it would actually help make Ronan more of an interesting character as a whole. But I don't know, just nothing really popped about this trailer for me. I'm still excited, but it just kind of, I just kind of like, well, that was nice. And I wanted to go, wow, that was amazing. But that was the last one of our trailers. No, we do have more trailers, but we'll get to that in a second. Because the one last thing we have to talk about is Spider-Man, because we're here and talking about Avengers. I was going to bring up Spider-Man Day a bit more. We talked about that and gave a plug to our buddy Joey. Everyone's enjoying the Spider-Man PS4 game. I think you played it, right?
I haven't played the video game.
Oh, worth a buy, immediate buy. Such a good game. I've already beaten it completely. Amanda probably was driven crazy by me just sitting there playing it the whole time, frankly. But I knocked it out of the park last week, and it's really good. That being said, we still have some Spider-Man news in terms of like the movies. For the upcoming Far From Home film, we're going to have a new suit for Spider-Man. Have you seen this new suit?
Was it the black one?
Yeah, the one I sent you last night. Okay, so I don't know what to make of this, but I don't like it. It looks like corduroy on the top of his head, where, like if you ever seen like corduroy pants where it's got like the little ripples in it, and it's all black, and then like the torso area looks like something like the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would wear, and I don't know if this is supposed to be an homage to the noir suit, or if this is like a stealth suit, or if this is going to be like his suit gets so irreparably damaged that Nick Fury and Maria Hill give him an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. costume, and then he throws a black sock over his head or whatever. But I'm just looking at this like it's very underwhelming, and this is supposed to be for the final fight scene against our villain Mysterio. So
maybe it's an allusion
what's your
to
take?
it might be an allusion to Venom SWAT suit.
Oh, Venom SWAT suit. Yeah, that's one I wouldn't have thought of. But yeah, it's an interesting tether. I'd not connected that before.
But beyond that, I kept thinking, is that just like the CGI outfit, and then it's going to be done in post? Like, what are they going to do? And
see, yes, I heard, because the Marvel fan base is very outspoken when you say anything even slightly against what's going on. And God, I got shit on this morning and last night because I was talking about it. But I really don't think it's a bad idea to go with a stealth or dark suit. I mean, we've seen black suit Spider-Man, and I love that. But I don't know what I'm seeing here, and it looks like I had people saying, it's going to be like kind of what you said, where, there's going to be special effects added on. But I'm looking at it, I'm seeing a lot of buckles and metal pieces on it. And, I don't see any area when they did Spider-Man's suit for Infinity War and some of those other ones, the eye piece is actually gone. It's removed. And what they do is they special effect the eye area so that it moves and it emotes and all that stuff. And that's a really cool effect that I totally am on board with, even if I didn't like Spider-Man Homecoming that much. I am totally behind that suit design because I understand how it works. I'm looking at this and I'm like, it looks like an army suit with a sock over the top of his head, but some decent eyepieces that are put on. And I don't know how this is going to look, but I don't think there's a lot of special effects that go into making it look any better. But I could be totally wrong on that. And I don't know. It's an odd look. I'll say that much. And it has me kind of befuddled because if that's the final scene of the film, like I'm hearing reports that it's going to be, is that going to have a cool payoff to it if that's the look? I don't know. But I will say,
I just hope that there's a good reason for him being in that outfit.
Well, there is if you look up on his upper right, like breastplate, because it's like an armor he's wearing. It looks like there's a white circle of sorts, but it's a little faded because of, unfortunately, the quality of the picture. And it looks very much like it's a SHIELD logo. So that's why I'm saying I think Maria Hill and Nick Fury are going to give him an old SHIELD uniform, and then he's going to it's going to be kind of like how Homecoming was, where it was like, oh, he didn't need the fancy suit the whole time. Like he uses his homemade one, and he fights that way. And I think it almost feels like them kind of retreading the same kind of ground, but just with a different suit. But again, how it plays out could blow our minds, and it could really excite us when it comes to. I'm just saying this initial image isn't wowing me. On the other end, yeah, exactly. On the other end, I will say what is really amusing me is we also, in that same set of photos, we got a look at Jake Gyllenhaal playing Mysterio, and I think he looks amazing. Have you seen these images or no?
I have.
Okay. What do you take on Mysterio right now?
I'm kind of glad that they're sort of going with a more comic book look to the costume.
Oh yeah, with the gauntlets and everything.
The colors are shiny off of, I guess, some of the metal parts to the costume.
Yeah.
The cape looks awesome. Everything about it just screams Mysterio. I think I read something about like, oh, that's not Mysterio, it's a different character. I'm like, no, that's a Mysterio outfit.
Okay.
Minus the helmet.
I'm glad you brought that up because I've heard this too. I've heard that they're going to do a swerve where it's actually going to be Norman Osborn under, all that stuff. And like, it's actually him, and that's who Jake Gyllenhaal was, because he wouldn't have signed on if he wasn't going to play someone bigger than Mysterio. So they made him Norman Osborn. I don't think that's going to happen. There's too much to set up with a character like Norman Osborn to have him just randomly appear as like this villain that you basically kill off in one movie. Plus, again, where's all the goblin tech? There's a million questions that would come out of it. And I don't think, especially after what happened with Iron Man 3, that they're going to do this weird radical swap that, subverts expectations of like what the character should be in the first place. So I don't think it's going to be Goblin. I don't think it's going to be Norman Osborn. It's going to be Gyllenhaal playing Mysterio, and it's going to be as simple as that. And I think it'll be good. I really do think that the movie will end up turning out great. I also have a personal investment into this because I found out that they're actually shooting in Czechoslovakia. Personal thing, my heritage and all that. So I'm a little excited to see all that. But I think it'll turn out all right. I'm just wondering about that suit. The suit is the thing that's been bugging me. Everything else I've seen looks great. And I'm a little curious how this plays out after the events of Avengers 4. I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on Avengers 4 or this, but yeah,
not at the moment.
Yeah. I will just quickly throw this in because we are on the Avengers talk. If any of you have seen the Russo brothers image that everyone seems to be thinking is Endgame, it says look closely or look closer. Everyone's speculating that it's a secret message that says Endgame for Avengers 4. I think it says Checkmate. It's on my personal Twitter. If you guys like it, go throw a like at it and let me know what you think. If you think it's something else, let us know. But let's talk about our number one, which is the non-MCU entities that exist out there. First of which being everyone's favorite, the Fox X-Men universe. First of which, with Dark Phoenix, have you seen the trailer?
Yes.
What do you think of the Dark Phoenix?
Whoever cut this trailer should be ashamed of themselves.
What about the cuts don't you like?
I think there's too much emphasis on Magneto. Too much emphasis on...
Oh.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
This is entirely this movie should focus only on Jean Grey.
I mean,
and they're not
she really is the focus.
They have Fassbender, they have Jennifer Lawrence in there, and then they have James McAvoy. So they're all going to get put in there and shoved into the story somehow.
Yeah.
I just don't.
See, unlike
honestly, this trailer just gave me like PTSD flashbacks of The Last Stand.
See, I'm nothing against you, but I am so tired of everyone saying, oh, it's exactly like The Last Stand. First of all, it's not shoving a shit ton of other mutants that have no names or no characteristics, just fighting in the background, or guys that like are going to get kicked in the balls or whatever, grow one of these back. It's not going to be that sort of bullshit. Like they're actually trying to take this movie out into space and actually give her like a somewhat, and I'll give credence to the idea that it's not the proper Phoenix storyline, but the idea that aliens are going to be involved. She is going to discover her own powers. Like the, what is it? Like the Omnicron crystal or whatever that was involved in all that stuff isn't actually going to be involved in this. And I get all that. But like, they're at least trying, like they did the part of setting up in the first or in the last movie of like, oh, she's got the power. She unleashes it. She's got all this, but I don't see a lot of the similarities here. There's no race for the mutant cure going on in this. There's not a million storylines going on. It's a very simple and structured story from what I'm seeing. Now, what could actually come out could be completely different, but what you get is the X-Men trying to take down one of their own. And it's not adding in like, 13 different mutants that we have to get to learn their backstories on. They're not adding in like Psylocke and Angel and all this other stuff. It's just the mutants, taking down one of their own who's gone out of control. And I think that's a cool kind of condensed story that makes a lot of sense. Whether it's completely comic book accurate or not it's whatever at this point. Especially with everything X-Men have done at this point. Like timelines make no sense. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense, but as long as they keep the story good, that's all I care about at this point. I don't like, that's what I took away from Logan. Now this isn't Logan and I get that, all that stuff, but with Logan, I forgo all the timeline stuff. I wasn't really thinking about like, one person commented to me like, well, what happened with their suits? I'm like, it's the 90s now. They took on different suits. I love the ones that they had at the end of Apocalypse, but they have new suits. It's the 90s and it's actual yellow X on their uniforms. Like the fact that people are shitting on it frustrates me to no end. Like we've moved on so far from stiff black leather that like I would think people would actually appreciate this. Like there's even an X-Men run, I think it's the new X-Men, I think it was like early 2000s, done by Brian Michael Bendis maybe, that actually had the yellow X's, and there's a comparison shot of Cyclops in the same actual outfit, and I'm like, how are we in a place where we're just shitting on everything now? Like, can Fox do anything that anyone appreciates? Or I'm just surprised as someone who's even DC with a little bit of Marvel thrown in, that people are so against everything that Sony or Fox are doing with these properties.
I think the best thing they did was sell the properties over to Marvel. Or technically to Disney.
Okay, still. I'll give credence to that because, now things are connected. And, the whole thing with Venom, now it's not connected to the Spider-Man origin, making Venom and all that stuff. I get that. But, like, if a movie is good, like if this movie does turn out to be good, which it may or may not, which I'm totally understanding of that, but at least give it some credit, like where credit's due. Like it's not doing all the insane nonsense stuff. They're actually giving us Genosha, which is where Magneto's been this whole time, trying to like give mutants a safe haven. Like, there's some really good X-Men stuff here. And it's not this blue light in the sky, crazy special effects show. So, I mean, they're not listening 100%, but at least I'm giving them credit for at least listening to 75% of what people have been saying about the franchise. So, I don't know. Maybe I just want to defend it more than it deserves, but I don't think this was like a big wow trailer, but I was very surprised at how much more tame and less nonsensical it was than like the last 4 X-Men movies I've seen. So I'm giving it a thumbs up for now. The thing that I'm unfortunately disappointed at is that they moved it from the February 14th date, and now we're going to be getting it on June 7th is what I've been told. So what do you make of that? Do you want to have Dark Phoenix sooner, or do you think that moving it was a bad idea?
Hopefully, if they moved it back, they're kind of adding stuff or fixing stuff.
Because
That's best case scenario.
Yeah, because I think it is to, just continue to improve upon the film. Even Rob Liefeld said that I guess now with the merger coming closer and closer, and this could all be a grain of salt, so just take it for what it is, but he was saying that Marvel is now throwing more money at Fox to make this a better and more connected film. So maybe they're pushing it for a little bit like that, that there is going to be some level of connectivity. I don't think there's going to be, like we've talked about before, where all of a sudden Cyclops just walks out in the middle of Avengers 4 and is like, hey guys. But I mean, I'd mark out over that. I think that'd be hilarious. But I don't think it's going to be that. I think they're just trying to make sure that the movie returns a profit and people have a positive view of X-Men going forward. If that is the case. One thing I've actually heard in terms of the Dark Phoenix being pushed is actually so that they can line up with a release date with the Chinese box office, which so they could return more money, because I guess the box office in the February months is not as good overseas. So that would make sense. And their only competition in the States during that week is The Secret Life of Pets 2, which, sorry, Amanda, we're not going to that. We're going to see Dark Phoenix. To be fair, we didn't see the first one until it got on home video, but I think it's a good week to put it in. It's just a bad idea in my opinion, because you're coming so quickly off of I guess I want to say the last Avengers film, but it's not really the last Avengers film. But Avengers 4 is going to be such a big spectacle kind of thing that everyone's going to be talking about, and then you're going to bring in this nice kind of quiet entry in the Marvel universe that's probably going to get shit on. So I don't know. We'll see. The only other thing in terms of the X-Men universe that I thought was worth bringing up, because we just heard about it, is that Gambit is still on its way. And Gambit is apparently going to be in the style of like a romantic, like rom-com, according to the Simon Kinberg and some of the producers.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to just say, it's not going to be what you think it is. Just because someone says it doesn't mean it's actually going to be that. It's kind of like when they described Wolverine. They're like, oh, it's going to be a Western. It wasn't him, hiking up his britches and going like, draw, pilgrim, or nothing like that. Like, it was set in the West, but it was still a superhero film. And I think really what they're alluding to is the idea that Gambit is a bit of a playboy, kind of like, like how he was with Rogue in the comics and some of the like the animated series and that sort of thing, like Mon Chéri, that sort of thing. I think there's going to be an element of that, because we mentioned that I can't remember her name, but the female love interest that they cast for the film, there's going to be some sort of romantic tension there, and he's going to be a bit of a playboy, and that makes sense. But it's not going to be like watching an episode of This Is Us, So I think
hope not.
Yeah, exactly. And they wouldn't do that. I can just tell, like, again, using the Wolverine example, for Logan, everyone jumps to these crazy conclusions. They hear that something is like this broad example of one thing, and they're like, oh, it's definitely this, and it's so wrong for the character, and it just gets blown out of proportion. So I just want to throw that out there, set the record straight. Gambit will not turn out that way. Yeah. Are you excited for Gambit? If it does end up coming when they say it is?
I mean, I would like to see it, especially since Channing Tatum's still, tied to the project.
Yeah, and he genuinely loves it. I think I said this maybe a few episodes back. Like, just the idea that he's so passionate about the project. Like, is he my first pick for Gambit? No. Is he going to be the definitive version for years to come and blah, blah, blah? Probably not. But, like, the amount of passion that someone has for a project, like, if they're a capable actor and they really, like, they grew up loving, like, even the whole Nicolas Cage Superman thing, like, I think he would have been a terrible Superman. But the fact that he loves the character so much that he would be willing to play, well, apparently now he wants to play Lex Luthor, and that's a whole thing. But like, yeah, I don't even want to get on that. But but like the fact that he named his kid Kal-El, the fact that he was going to be Superman at one time, like, I genuinely feel bad. Like, I really wish that we had gotten to see that. It probably would have been a shit show, but it would have been really fun to see what someone who has a lot of passion behind a project can create, whether it's good or bad. So with Gambit, when we do get it, because it's supposed to be shooting next year, although we've heard that before, I just want to see it, before everything reverts over and then we get, some more, how do I put it, streamlined versions of the X-Men or Fantastic Four, and then it's all going to be great, I'm sure. I want to see them do some of the weird stuff before it all goes away. So any other Marvel stuff you want to mention real quick? Maybe Fox related or Venom related?
Not really. Venom comes out this week, so
yeah. I will be seeing it on Wednesday, so expect a review and spoilers and all that stuff. I'm also seeing a little later today, Bad Times at the El Royale. So looking forward to both of those movies, and I will be posting up a little review on Stardust, where I do some of those quick reviews right after we're out of the movie. So yeah, that's it for Marvel. Let's cut to a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back to talk about the fall TV lineup.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
This week's sponsor is Loot Crate. For less than $20 a month, Loot Crate gives the geek in you a special treat with each box. Loot Crate is a subscription box service with more than $40 worth of geek, gamer, pop culture gear, collectibles, apparel, etc. You'll have until the 19th at 9 p.m. Pacific to subscribe and receive this month's crate. And when the cutoff happens, that's it. It is over. So head to lootcrate.com/nerdrage and use the promo code NERDRAGE to get 10% off your crate today.
And now, on with the show.
And we're back. Okay, so normally we do like this whole big long thing here for the big talk. We're probably not going to do that this week, but I thought that it would just be fun for us to talk about shows that we would personally recommend or that we're just genuinely excited about for the upcoming fall season. Some non-superhero ones that I'm actually going to bring up here, which might surprise some people, but I wanted to start with you, Brad. What fall TV has you most excited?
So when I was at home during the summer, I started watching Last Man Standing.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And it's actually a really funny show.
It's pretty solid. I enjoy it. I know a lot of people get very controversial with it, like, oh,
and the thing is, I grew up watching Tim Allen on Home Improvement.
Yep.
So Tim Allen is sort of like kind of staple TV show, sitcom, funny guy.
Absolutely, yeah, and he is. And I really enjoyed watching the show for quite a while. I will say though that I know that in the show he will preach a couple times about it leans Republican, and we try not to get all political as much on the show, which is ironic because where I'm going to go next is going to be on the opposite end of the spectrum. But I really think that it's still a funny show. I don't like the fact that the new season, because they released the first episode of the new season on Fox early. They did it on Twitter. It was to hype people up. So I watched it, and it still got the same level of humor, but one of the daughters didn't come back, which is weird because they already had that happen with the oldest daughter, and that happened, I think, in the first or second season. And I always thought that
it was the first season, I think.
Yeah, and it was a weird change for me to adjust to, and then I got so used to that. Then now they get rid of the other daughter. I'm like, almost just kind of waiting for the youngest daughter to finally get switched out too at some point. I would have liked it if it just ended where it did, but it's still a funny show, so I'm still okay with it. Like if they want to keep doing more episodes. My one that I wanted to bring up, which like I said was kind of on the other end of it, is Murphy Brown. I am genuinely surprised that Murphy Brown is back, and it's good. I really like Murphy Brown. Did you watch any of it?
Oh gosh, I've seen a couple of reruns, but that's really about it.
Yeah, so the old show was great. You know, they would poke fun at political figures and that sort of thing. Most infamously, the whole thing with Dan Quayle. And she had a good little run of popularity, and that show ran for, I want to say, like 6 to 8 seasons, something like that. And it's still pretty well holds up, in my opinion. I will say the pilot for the new, I guess you call it reboot or whatever, had some of the cast that, like, I don't remember them being as rough on the acting. Like, there's this one guy, he's the producer, and I don't know, he just seemed like he had not acted for quite some time, so he was a little choppy on some of his lines. But like, the humor was still there. Actually, it's a little bit of a spoiler of sorts, if you will, but Hillary Clinton shows up and has this nice little bit about auditioning or interviewing to be Murphy Brown's secretary and not getting the job, which was like, yeah, you know, like how she was fitted for it and, you know, lost out. I thought it was a really funny show. They even do a little Twitter tirade with Murphy against Donald Trump, and it was really funny. I enjoyed it. I'm excited to see, you know, even if I don't think it's going to go the whole route of Roseanne where it's going to get everybody politically in an uproar, but at the same time, like, I think it'll be fun to see a little bit of political jabbing while still being a funny show along the way. What's another one for you?
I guess it's not superhero related.
Okay, it's fine. There's a lot of non-superhero stuff.
I mean, the one show I do want to watch is Watchmen.
Which one?
Watchmen.
Oh, yeah, Watchmen. Oh, that's definitely one that we've talked about a lot. What has you most interested about it?
I would really like to get back in that universe. You know, you can rip Snyder however much you want, but that Watchmen movie is really good. I mean, it's aside from the actual end of that movie, and which I think it actually makes more sense. But I understood what they were doing, like with the Alan Moore run and all that. I think it's nearly shot for shot what that comic book was, and I think they did a fantastic job. I'm trying not to say Snyder too many times because I feel like I'm going to trigger someone out there, but what they did with that movie as a whole, though, was a really solid interpretation. So, this is going to be like a continuation of that story. So I'm curious to see how that goes. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that's definitely worth getting excited for. I just hope that it turns out the way that I think it will. Another one that I would like to bring up is Man in the High Castle is coming back for, I believe it's a 3rd season now. Man in the High Castle is so good. Whether you're, you know, the politics or whatever and all that stuff, it's not so much there. I've heard a lot of people think that it's like pushing for some sort of agenda. It's the simple synopsis for those of you who've never heard of it is that what happened in this alternate timeline where Germany took over America and then they split the far west, like California, down to the Japanese, and there's like a middle trench in the that divides the Japanese territories and Germany. That's kind of like a no man's land, but essentially it's this resistance group that finds out that, well, I don't want to spoil it all, but basically it's a resistance group that's trying to fight back against tyranny in this alternate world that they've come to accept as their own. And it's very interesting. And actually this season they add Jason O'Mara, who some people will know as Batman in the animated movies, or most recently, I think he was the Patriot on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's a great actor. I'm really excited for it. Have you seen any of Man in the High Castle? I have not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime, so you got to have Prime Video to watch it, but it's really good. What's the next one for you?
I guess just in general, the CW shows.
Which one in particular? I think I know the answer already.
I'm more excited about Arrow.
I had a feeling.
To be honest.
Okay. Does the whole prison thing have you the most excited, or what excites you the most this season?
I'm just trying to see how Ollie kind of transitions from, I guess, perceived criminal to going to the Green Arrow again.
Well, it looks like someone's trying to take up his mantle right now, for at least for the first few episodes. So it's weird, but I kind of want them to keep Ollie in prison. I almost feel like it's one of those things where, like, the first 3 to 4 episodes is going to be like, oh man, prison sucks. And then some convenience will opt for Oliver to get out, and then he will, and then
maybe he's in prison like for half the season.
If he was, I'd be very impressed with that, because I feel like that's dedication to a storyline that a lot of shows don't want to do. Because I feel like for some people, if you take a character out of their element for too long, people get disinterested in it. And I think that would be a fresh thing for just keeping him there, even if it's half a season, like you said, and just seeing and exploring what it's like to be in that prison environment. Especially like how Star City holds up without him, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know how many more you have, but some other ones I want to make note of. Superstore is returning on NBC. I really love that show. Highly recommend it. Very funny. Another one that I would definitely recommend would be like Doctor Who with the new Doctor. I started watching it, and I'm back to watching The Walking Dead. So shows that have kind of gone on for a while that some people thought, maybe they're not as good anymore. I'm hearing great things about The Walking Dead this season, so I'm very excited to see how that turns out. And then Star Wars Resistance, like you said, apparently it's coming this Sunday at 10 p.m. on Disney. So I'm a little excited for it. I'm hoping that it turns out the way that I think it will. Is there any others that you wanted to bring up?
Not really on my end.
Okay. I guess the only other one that I can really think of off the top of my head, because you mentioned a lot of the ones that I was going to say too. They are going to do that Haunting of Hill House movie. I was going to bring it up in miscellaneous. Well, see, I keep hearing movie, but then I also hear TV show. And it's actually listed on a lot of things as TV, so I'm putting it in the TV talk here.
Okay.
I think it looks really good. The trailer looks spooky as hell. We've got I can't think of her name, but the lead actress who's fantastic in everything she does. She was in a lot of Zack Snyder projects. I said Zack Snyder again. But yeah, I'm genuinely excited for that. And then of course, like you said, with the DC stuff, the crossover that we're getting with the Elseworlds, the incorporation of Batwoman and everything that's going along with that, which even though we don't have all the story on that, like just what we're hearing has me excited as a whole. So yeah, I think that's about it. What are you guys most excited for out there in the internet? Let us know. Hit us up with an email over at nerdragepod@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought about these last couple weeks that we've been away. Tell us what you've been thinking about the new fall lineup as a whole. We are actually going to be coming back with a new episode probably in less than a week, because we felt so bad about how much we had been away that we're going to get right back into a good schedule here. Lots of reviews coming. We've got an interview that I can't wait to share with you guys from the showrunner of Iron Fist Season 2, which Brad and I both really enjoyed that. And I can't say thank you enough to Raven for coming on for that. I do have a couple more interviews lined up with some really cool people that we're going to release probably in the next month here. So it's going to be a really fun October. The only bad news I have to announce is that now that I'm out in California, we won't be doing a live show out in Wisconsin like we used to do for the last 3 years. So unfortunately, we will not be doing that. But I'm planning some cool stuff for Halloween, maybe a spooky episode of sorts, and we'll try and make it fun. That being said, if you guys want to go and check us out, we are on Twitter at The Nerd Rage Pod. We are on Facebook at The Nerd Rage Podcast. Support us on our Patreon if you can. Throw us a buck or two. We really appreciate that. Find us on TeePublic at the Nerd Rage Podcast. Brad is working on some stuff. Amanda's working on some cool stuff. And we're going to get some cool new logos out here really soon. And lastly, I want to bring this up because I'm very excited about this. We are going to be having actual written reviews because now we are getting our own website. Yay! Yeah, so I will be building a website for us this month because we have some promotions and some things that are being sent our way that we want to do reviews for, and we need real reviewers. So if anyone out there would like to do reviews for our site, hit us up via email or any of our social media, and we would be more than happy to have you a part of the team and getting some cool perks along with the reviews that you do. So I think that's it for this week. Thank you guys again for the Nerd Rage Podcast. I've been Ryan Anderson.
And I'm Brad Lerman.
And we'll see you guys again next week.